Hello, everyone. Welcome. We will open the meeting in 1 second. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to first do a swearing-in service before a full council meeting, but we will get started now. The Salem City Council will hold its regular meeting in person on Thursday, December 7, 2023. In person, first at 7 p.m. for the purpose of transacting any and all business. Notice of this meeting was posted on December 5th, 2023 at 8:34 a.m. This meeting is being recorded and is live on SATV and Zoom unless technological issues interrupt the transmission. Councilors absent, Councilor Dominguez. Councilor President Stott presided. Councilor McCarthy moved to dispense with the reading of the record of the previous meeting. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. I now request that everyone please rise to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, which I have requested. We have former Councilor Flynn with us in the audience this evening. I've requested that he help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Salem City Council honors that this land is Namkeg, or fishing place, where generations of Namkeg people from the Pawtucket Band of the Massachusetts tribe lived and passed through for centuries. We acknowledge that this is unceded indigenous land and also acknowledge the Massachusetts tribe who continue to honor and hold this land into the present. Salem City Council is committed to having ongoing, meaningful dialogue with the indigenous people who have presence in Salem in order to dismantle the legacies of oppression and inequities that persist today. Now, Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. Point of personal privilege to allow the mayor and Chief Dion to swear in some new firefighters.
Thank you. Seeing no objection, Mayor and Chief.
Thank you, councilors. My name is Alan Dion. I'm the fire chief here in Salem, Massachusetts, for those who may not know me. We come to you tonight for our traditional swearing-in ceremony. This is a big deal in the fire service. In particular in Salem, it's a great tradition we have where we come into the council chambers and we recognize our newest members and we swear them into the department. They take their oath of service. It's also a great tradition that we recognize the officers and those firefighters who've studied to make officer rank. They're now the leaders of our department. Very briefly, the leadership structure in the fire department is sometimes a mystery to people. So for basic understanding, we have divisions. We have 4 divisions. The divisions are headed by 1 deputy chief. They have 4 captains and 6 lieutenants, and 2 captains and 6 lieutenants. And those captains and lieutenants, the best way I can describe their role is if anybody's familiar with the military standings, they're kind of like the gunny sergeant. They're in the trenches with the firefighters. They work on the trucks. They pretty much lead the firefighters in their day-to-day operations. And I like to say they're the backbone of the fire department. So the officers, lieutenants, and captains, they're the ones that really keep the fire department working, and they support the leadership roles that are above them. The deputies, they command a division. Every division has 1 deputy. And as a chief, I have 4 division deputies and an administrative deputy. And the department, it depends on them, and I depend on them to run the department entirely. They're my connection to the operations side of every division, and they keep things working as they need to work. They're also the commander at major incidents, as you know. We have a very, very strong paramilitary leadership structure. And that's why we take so much pride in what we do. And we do believe in ceremony and ceremonies just like tonight's. So I'd like to take a minute and just introduce the newest firefighters and the officers that will be promoted. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mayor Pangallo for a few remarks. And then we'll go ahead and do the swearing in ceremony. So to my right, if I say your name, raise your hand because I won't get the order correct. Firefighter Jeremy Quinton has already completed the academy and he joins the Salem Fire Department. I have Matthew Connors, Robert Decker, and Thomas Williams. They were all attending the fire academy now, and when they complete the academy, I believe sometime in January, then they'll be assigned to a division and join the ranks of the Salem Fire Department. To my left, I have Lieutenant Kevin Welch. I have Lieutenant Patrick Burt. I have Captain Steve McCarthy. All right. Deputy Peter Shoblin and Deputy Patrick Tobin. The people you see behind me are just a sampling of the finest that we have in Salem working for the fire department. I think we have just an elite force, some of the greatest people that I have the privilege to know. And as I said, it's an honor to work with them day in and day out. So with no further ado, I'd like to turn things over to the mayor. And once again, thank you, council, for allowing us to hold the ceremony here tonight. And if I may, one last item, I'd like to congratulate and wish Councilor McCarthy all the best moving on. He's meant a lot to me, and he's meant a lot to the fire service. Thank you, Councilor. Mayor Pangallo.
Thank you, Chief. And this is such a great honor for me to be able to administer this oath. My first administering of the oath of office as mayor here. And I couldn't be more proud or grateful for the service of everyone who's behind me now and everybody in that department. Today is Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. And I was reflecting on that and recognizing that it's a day to think about service. It's a day to think about courage. And our fire service really exemplifies those things. So today is a fitting and appropriate day to be swearing in these new firefighters and these promotional swearing in for these new officers of the fire service. So thank you, Chief. Thank you, everyone. And I think with that, we do it? Okay.
We'll start with the firefighters, and then we'll swear in the officers. Right hand, repeat after me. I, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as a Salem firefighter, acting to the best of my ability and understanding, agreeably with the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Salem. So help me God. I, state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Patrick do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as lieutenant, acting to the best of my ability and understanding, agreeably with the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Salem. So help me God. I, state your name. I, Patrick Welch, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. You're gonna make your way to the corner to sign the book. So go to that corner.
Okay.
Jeff's already ready to get out of here. Is there a book signing, Ellen?
Is there one more?
Oh, it's over here. All right, it's on the other side.
Yep. Just a reminder, the oath book is over there for all of you to sign. Councilor McCarthy?
President started for a 5-minute recess to allow the firefighters to sign and then clear the chambers.
Councilor McCarthy moves for recess. seconded by Councilor Marcillo. We are recessed for 5 minutes.
Obviously, you can all stay if you want. We're going to set the tax rate. The Patriots really aren't that good anymore.
Real fun stuff.
And we are back on. Thank you all, and congrats to all the newly inaugurated firefighters. Now we are on to the public testimony portion of the regular meeting. Public testimony is not to exceed 15 minutes. Public testimony is not a public hearing or question and answer period. Sign up must occur 30 minutes prior to the meeting. The president shall, depending on the number of speakers, set a time limit not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker, with each individual presenting testimony must abide. There's a sign-up sheet in the clerk's office and online that you can use to sign up. And we have 12 members that have signed up this evening, so that's a little over 1 minute each, 1 minute, 6 seconds, I believe. 67 seconds. So that time will go by fast. Those that are making public comment, if you could please keep it concise so we can get those comments in this evening. I'm going to go down the list and call on those that I see first. First, those that are in person, a Mr. Blackmum. If you are here in person, you may make your way to the podium. Seeing no Harry, I will go on to a Mr. Rehnquist. You may make your way to the podium. Seeing no Mr. Rehnquist making his way to the podium, I am going to go on to a Mr. Stevens. Seeing no Mr. Stevens, I'm going to go on to a Mr. Alito. Seeing no Alito, I am going to go to those that I do see in the office, in the chambers, and I see online. So we have 7 members that are remaining of the list. So I'm going to adjust my time. We now are all allowed to speak for 2 minutes. So first up, I'm going to call the first one that I see in the room. Mr. Malloy, if you can make your way to the podium and start your comments.
Thank you very much. This is quite an experience. I'm really glad I came to this. So I want to talk so my name is Jim Malloy. I'm a Salem resident now for 4 years, and I'm co-chair of Salem Alliance for the Environment. And I've met a bunch of you counselors, and I'm going to be meeting a bunch more. And today I want to speak about the specialized code. You're going to vote on this today. Obviously, we're an environmental group. We care very much about this. We want this to pass. We lost the opportunity in Salem to actually be part of that 10-town keep gas out of our buildings. Last month, we would have had to apply, and bandwidth was not enough in the city, and it's understandable. It's a crazy time. City is, having trouble with personnel. So this will make a difference. This will pick up a lot of what that miss was last month. 31 communities around Salem around the city around the state have already signed on. Last night, Melrose signed on. 10-1 was the vote. We need this code. It's not a big stretch to be doing this. Of course, there are going to be lots of complaints from certain folks, but this is not a big lift. We need to be doing this for our future. We need to be doing this for our kids. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Next up, we have Christopher Patsky.
Good evening. I'd like to reiterate several facts that should be addressed in this council. The Massachusetts tribe at Ponkapoag is not recognized by the state or federal government. This tribe did not have the integrity to maintain its nonprofit status and lost that status after failure to file with the IRS for 3 years in a row, according to GuideStar. The Massachusetts tribe at Ponkapoag has no relation to the Namkeg. Members claim to be descendants of the Neponset, who are documented as enemies of the Namkeg. The Massachusetts tribe at Ponkapoag has been represented at events involving children and at City Hall by a man, Thomas Green, who court records show was convicted and sentenced to 2 one-year prison terms for crimes involving beating his girlfriend, possession of drugs with the intent to distribute, and illegal possession of ammunition. In an attempt to discredit those with valid concerns and issues related to these facts and those reporting them, Carolyn Watson Felt slandered members of this community by calling them white supremacists and misogynists. Other members of council, city employees, committee members, and board members have publicly supported this grossly inappropriate slander. I ask the council to condemn Carolyn Watson Felt's words and anyone who supports this slander in the strongest manner possible. On a separate issue, I object to the appointment of VJ Joyce to the Historical Commission. The city is a certified local government and is legally obligated to fill vacancies on the commission by members of this community. I understand Joyce does not live in our community. I ask the council to verify his residency and evaluate his residency with the legal requirements of a certified local government prior to considering his reappointment.
Thank you for your comments. I believe that is all for those that will be in person this evening. So we will move to those that are joining us via Zoom. If you have signed up for public comment, please use the raise hand function so the clerk can find you. I will call on your name and you may start your comment, unmute yourself, and start your 2-minute comment. First up, I will call Justin Whittier. I can't ask. We're going to unmute 398, and hopefully that's Justin. You may begin your comments. Justin, you should be allowed to speak. Okay, you can try again. Justin, if you're calling in with a number that ends in 398, you should be allowed to speak. We cannot hear you, so we will go on to the next comment. We also have John Hayes. John, please use, if you're joining us via Zoom, please use the raise hand function. John, you should be allowed to unmute yourself and start your comment. Do you see him? Nope. Okay, we will move on to Christine Madore. If you are joining us via Zoom, you can use the raise hand function and we will allow you to unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, councilors. I'm here to urge you to vote for first passage on the inclusionary housing ordinance proposed and before you tonight, and schedule a special meeting for second and final passage before 2023 ends. It would be a great way to ring in the new year by saying a loud and resounding yes to affordable housing. In the latest release of the Greater Boston Housing Report Card, the data shows that despite an increase of more than 1,200 new homes in Salem over the past 12 years, we actually saw a loss of 285 subsidized affordable homes in the same period. Passage of the inclusionary housing ordinance will make sure our continuing growth also creates new opportunities for affordable homes reserved for those who need them the most. The Salem Planning Board's current policy of requiring developments to include 10% of projects set aside for households earning 60% of AMI is applying a sledgehammer to solve a complex problem. This inclusionary housing ordinance will allow us to surgically tackle these issues with a scalpel. Finally, I'd like to express my deep gratitude to the planning staff for all their hard work and patience over the past 3 years to keep this moving forward. I hope you will vote for first passage on inclusionary housing ordinance tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, we have a Robert Bonney. If you are joining us via Zoom land, please use the raise hand function, and we will allow you to speak.
Hello.
Yep, hi, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm Rob Bonney, live at 9 Barton Square in Salem, and I am the co-chair of Citizens Climate Lobby North Shore. I'm also on the board of Salem Alliance for the Environment. And just to let you know how much I love our city. We invite all our friends and family to come, and you're doing something right because almost all of them say they want to move here. So I have some more ideas for how to make it even better. It's the specialized code that you're considering. I urge you to pass it. I have emailed my comments, but I will paraphrase them quickly for you. There are a number of things that I think are great about this code. One, consumer protections. Foremost, pre-wiring, which means, well, basically electrification is inevitable. So if we don't pre-wire new construction, everybody's going to be paying more to upgrade the capacity of their homes to electrify. The second, with fully electric homes or mostly electric homes, using electric stoves, you are not inviting methane into homes, which is what happens with gas stoves. It leaks. There are no requirements for additions, alterations, renovations, or any all-new electric construction. Only large homes, 4,000 square foot, and large businesses, 20,000 square foot, would be required to have on-site solar, but they will be paying for energy that's already competitive with fossil fuel generated electricity. Those that have multifamily housing will have significantly lower lifetime costs.
Mr. Bonney, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your time is up. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. Next up, we have Judith Riley. Judith, you should be allowed to speak.
Thank you very much. I am here to speak, to ask you to please adopt the specialized energy code and also to please pass the inclusionary zoning ordinance, including first passage tonight and arranging for the meeting for the second passage. I would also like to echo Christine Mador's comment in thanks to the planning department staff who worked so hard on the inclusionary zoning ordinance, and also thank all the folks who worked on the specialized energy code and moving Salem towards energy, a better energy policy all around. As long as I'm here, I'd like to recommend that the council look into some way for the public to submit written comments for the city council meetings in addition to verbal comments. That would be great. That would create a record so that people can see public comments and people don't actually have to be present to have their comments made part of the city council meeting. So just thought I would throw that in. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. I will note that public comment can be sent to us via email as well to citycouncilors@salem.com or the city clerk who disseminates it to us. Perhaps we can add that to the agenda email going forward. We're going to go back to the two that we tried before. We'll give one more shout out on to Zoom land. First is John Hayes on Zoom. Do we see his screen name, Madam Clerk?
398 still has their hand up, so I don't know if it's Justin or... It's Justin.
I see two with their hands up. Is it just... Oh, and that's Judith. Okay. So Justin, yeah, if that's you with your number that ends in 398, you should be able to unmute yourself. We will try one more time.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Well, that is deeply frustrating. All right. Justin Whittier, 10 River Street. As you all know, at a recent meeting, I raised a question, and I want to emphasize a question, not a denial or an accusation, about the council's due diligence with regard to the legitimacy of the Ponkapog. In response, a member of the council said my question was unwelcome, suggested that it reflected white supremacy, and that they would not allow it to be debated. In the first place, this is nonsense. If you listen to Native American voices around the country, including Massachusetts' own Commission on Indian Affairs, you will hear lots of Native voices expressing concerns about what they call pretendians. It is a simple fact that Native communities have deep concerns about the legitimacy of claims to Native heritage. Clearly, therefore, there's nothing white supremacist about questions of legitimacy. Secondly, my question is absolutely relevant and necessary since you, the council, are basing your view of Salem's history on the opinions of the Ponkapog and enshrining that view in council practice in perpetuity. Not to mention forming a partnership, whatever that means, with the Ponkapog. You are making public policy with the Ponkapog. The citizens of Salem have every right and every reason to ask about them and about your due diligence. For a councilor to chill public comment with accusations of bigotry is totally beyond the pale, as is any suggestion that they may arbitrarily limit what the public may express or the council may debate. The entire land acknowledgement process has been a travesty. It was written in secret and then dumped on the public, and the public were then told, we're not changing anything. We spent 2 years on this. Your input is irrelevant and your questions aren't welcome. This is not democracy. I have written to you, the council as a whole, asking you to reaffirm the council's dedication to free speech and free debate. You have refused, either directly or by your complete silence. Everyone needs to know that. This council needs to take a long look in the mirror. At the very least, you have lost credibility. This isn't about pearl clutching, as some suggest. It's about democracy.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is up. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. And John Hayes is not joined, correct? Okay.
Council President, John Hayes had texted me that he had submitted his testimony in writing.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So, Councilor Hepworth.
Thank you, President Stott. I move that we go out of order to page 7 to take up appointees.
Councilor Hepworth moves we go to page 7, seconded by Councilor McCarthy.
4, if I may. Thank you, President Stott. I also want to take a brief moment to recognize the 3 councilor-elects that are in the room with us tonight, trying to get their feet wet a little bit and going to watch a tax hearing. You can't get to vote on it, but you will get to vote on one soon. So I'd like to recognize Councilor-elect Harvey, Councilor-elect Jerzalo, and Councilor-elect Davis. There he is. I thought I saw him earlier. Just then, thank you for coming. And you're about to get tax classification 101. Here we go.
Fun. So Councilor Hepworth moves that we take the agenda out of order to page 7, appointments and reappointments, seconded by Councilor McCarthy, I'm assuming. Seeing no opposition, appointments and reappointments.
Held from the last meeting, the mayor's appointments of the following with terms to expire. Rebecca Fisher to the Public Arts Commission, November 15th, 2024, and Erin Turowski, Traffic and Parking Commission, November 16th, 2024.
Councilor Hepworth.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councilor Hepworth moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Stott. Just want to appreciate both of these potential appointees here for their willingness to serve. Ms. Fisher brings extensive experience curating corporate art collections with a master's in museum studies and commitment to supporting the arts in Salem. I want to thank her for her willingness to serve. Ms. Turowski, you may know, is the founder of Salem Safe Walking Advocacy Group. And just appreciate her commitment to pedestrian safety and think she'll be a strong voice on the Traffic and Parking Commission.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Hepworth? I'm sorry, Councilor Cohen. I was looking at you.
Call me Councilor Hepworth. I want to second what Councilor Hepworth said. I want to specifically recognize Erin Turowski because some of the efforts that she's already initiated are actually being passed in the council, and some of the initiatives that SWAG have taken have really made Salem a safer place for people to walk, and I think she's going to be great on the Traffic and Parking Commission.
Any further discussion? Madam City Clerk, are you ready for the roll?
Council Watson-Felt?
Yes.
Council Varela?
Yes.
Council Prosnewski?
Yes.
Council Marcillo?
Yes.
Council Merkel?
Yes.
Council McLean?
Yes.
Council McCarthy?
Yes.
Council Hepworth?
Yes.
Council Dominguez? Oh, sorry. Council Cohen?
Yes.
And Council Stott?
Yes. Thank you. On the mayor's appointments of Rebecca Fisher to the Public Arts Commission and Erin Turowski to the Traffic and Parking Commission. 10 members voting, 10 in the affirmative, 1 absent. Matter carries. Councillor Hepworth.
Thank you, President Stott. I'd like to suspend the rules to allow Ms. Dorowski and Ms. Fisher, if she's here, to speak.
Whoever would like to go first.
Good evening, everyone. And I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. I know there's a lot of work to be done in the city, and I think there's a lot of exciting projects underway, and I'm really excited to just get involved and help solve some of these problems that are coming to a head. Thank you to Mayor Pangallo for his words of support, and to Councillor Cohen as well. Just again, thank you all for putting your trust in me, and I look forward to seeing what I can do for the city. Thank you.
I'm Becky Fisher. I just want to thank everyone for their time and consideration. Deeply humbled to speak on service in this great room, but I am very excited and grateful for the opportunity to serve the arts in Salem, artists, and help in the fire city. Thank you.
Further appointments and reappointments.
With the mayor's appointment of the following with the term to expire: Jeremy Mail to the Community Preservation Act Commission to expire on December 7th, 2026.
Councillor Hepworth.
President Stott, I move for suspension of the rules.
Councillor Hepworth moves for suspension of the rules. Councillor Hepworth for suspension of the rule. I think it's Rule 23 that you're...
29B.
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 Under discussion, seeing no objection for suspension of the Rule 29B. Councillor Hepworth.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councillor Hepworth moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion.
This is, thank you, President Stott. This is, we have matters before this, before the, this committee next, the Community Preservation Committee next week, or I think within the next week, I believe. So just want to get this through if possible to allow Mr. Millay to serve. Want to appreciate Jeremy. I think a lot of us were excited to see his name on here. He's been very interested in serving the city of Salem, has a lot of expertise, a lot to bring, a lot of passion to bring to this community. So I, for one, am happy to see him on this agenda this week, and I think the rest of us are as well.
Councillor Cohen.
Thanks, President Stott. I want to second that. I'm going to miss Jeremy being in Ward 5, but he's very persistent, and I think a lot of us have encouraged him to keep trying to get on the board, and I think he's going to serve the city very well.
Thank you. Any further discussion? On the mayor's appointment of Jeremy Mealy to the Community Preservation term, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councillor Watson-Felt?
Yes.
Councillor Varela?
Yes.
Councillor Prosniewski?
Yes.
Councillor Marcillo?
Yes.
Councillor Merkel?
Yes.
Councillor McLean?
Yes.
Councillor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councillor Hapworth?
Yes.
Councillor Cohen?
Yes.
And Councillor Stott?
Yes. On the appointment of Jeremy Mealy to the CPA Committee, 10 members voting in the affirmative, 1 absent, matter carries. Councillor Hepworth.
Thank you, President Stott. I move to suspend the rules to allow Jeremy to speak if he chooses.
Thank you.
Hello. I'd just like to say thank you to Mayor Pangallo and the City Council for appointing me to this committee. It means a lot to me that you've put your trust in me, and I hope to live up to that trust. Salem is an amazing city. It's a place I've called home for many years now. I want to do my part to make sure that we protect its history, and that we make sure that it continues to be the great place to live that it currently is. So once again, I'd just like to say thank you for appointing me to this committee. I won't let you down.
We just, do we want to finish the appointments and reappointments since it's one order? Further appointments and reappointments.
We have the mayor's reappointments with the following terms to expire. These appointments were confirmed on 12/6/22 for 1 year with the condition that when expired in 2023, their term to expire reverts back to their original termination date.
Councillor Hepworth.
Thank you, President Stott. I move these be held under the rules.
Councillor Hepworth moves that this be held under the rules. Any discussion?
No discussion.
All those in favor that these are held under the rules, Any opposed? Matter is held. Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. I move that we now go out of order to page 4 so that poor Sabita doesn't have to sit through our tax hearing.
It's going to be a fun bouncing ball this evening. Okay. Seeing no objection, that we move to page 4, hearings.
We have a request from National Grid to install one jointly owned pole on Congress Street. That was withdrawn by National Grid.
Do we need to close the public hearing even though it's been withdrawn, or can we just move on?
No, we didn't open it, so.
Okay, so we will move on to the page 4. Further hearings.
We request from National Grid to install one pole on Flint Street with the intersection of Oak Street and Flint Street.
For the petition for National Grid to install one pole, number 666-50 on Flint Street, the intersection of Oak and Flint, appearing in favor. Anyone appearing in favor, please make your way to the podium or use the raise hand function on Zoom.
Peter Mahaber Sheehy, representing National Grid, 44 River Street, Beverly, Massachusetts. This poll is for Peter monitoring. Peter monitoring.
If anyone is also in the council that wishes to speak in favor of this, you may make your way to the podium, or if you are joining us on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. Okay, we will move to anyone that might be appearing in opposition. If you are joining us in council chambers, you may make your way to the podium, or if you are joining us in Zoom, you can use the raise hand function. Seeing none. Councilor Watson-Felt?
Thank you, President. I move that we close the public hearing.
Councilor Watson-Felt moves that we close the public hearing. Any further discussion?
No discussion.
Okay. All those in favor that the public hearing be closed? Any opposed? Public hearing is closed. Councilor Watson-Felt.
Thank you, President Stott. I move that this now be adopted.
Councilor Watson-Felt moves that this be adopted. Any further discussion?
Not for me.
Thank you for taking this for me, by the way. I had no comments. Okay. All those in favor that the petition for National Grid to install one pole on Flint Street at the intersection of Oak and Flint, that this be adopted. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further hearings.
We have a request from National Grid to install one pole on Bridge Street at the intersection of Bridge and Flint.
For those appearing in favor for National Grid's petition to install one pole, number 597 on Bridge Street at the intersection of Bridge and Flint Street, please make your way to the podium.
Sabita Mahaber Sheehy, representing National Grid, 44 River Street, Beverly, Massachusetts. And this is replacing one of the previous petitions that we had, and also for Peter monitoring.
If anyone else is appearing in favor, either in chambers or on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function or make your way to the podium. Anyone appearing in opposition on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function or make your way to the podium here in chambers. Seeing none. Councilor Watson-Felt, if you don't mind.
Thank you, President Stott. I move that we close the public hearing.
Councilor Watson-Felt moves that we close the public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing? Any opposed? Public hearing is closed. Councilor Watson-Felt.
Thank you. I move that we now adopt this.
Councilor Watson-Felt moves that we adopt this. Any discussion? I would just like to say thank you for the reconsideration of the previous location that was in a possible bike lane. So thank you. Any further discussion on the matter on the request from National Grid to install one pole number 597 on Bridge Street at the intersection of Bridge Street and Flint Street, that this be adopted? All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. I move that we now return to page 3.
Councilor Marcillo moves that we return to page 3, seconded by Councilor Watson-Felt. Seeing no objection, page 3. Hearings.
We have a public hearing on the issue of allocating the local property tax levy among the 4 property classes for fiscal year '24 and the residential open space and small commercial exemption options.
Thank you. Joining us this evening is Mayor Pangallo, Anna Friedman, our Finance Director, Stephen Cortez, the City Assessor, as well as the Board of Assessors as well. I will then now turn the public hearing over to the Mayor, Ms. Friedman, and Mr. Cortez for discussion and presentation. Mayor, thank you.
Did I? Oh, yeah, I think it.
Let them get set up over there. So I'll start. So first I want to thank Stephen Cortez, our city assessor, the staff in his department, the members of the board, Anna Friedman, our finance director. Stephen has a detailed presentation we'll go through for the hearing, so I'm going to keep my introduction pretty brief here. So as you know, this time each year, the city council must vote to set the tax rate, which is in effect deciding how we are going to pay for the budget that was approved back in the spring. This year, the average single-family tax bill will go up by just about the same amount it went up last year, of around 4%, which is about how much our budget increased this year. We use a number of tools to try to mitigate how much taxes will increase. For example, before you this evening on the agenda for the council meeting, you have orders to apply free cash, receipts from a number of city enterprises to reduce the total amount that we need to raise through taxes. In all, those orders will save Salem taxpayers around $3.25 million. New growth is also critically important to mitigating taxes. This year, new growth will generate just under $1.2 million for the city, slightly outpacing the $1 million we had estimated at the start of the year. We can put those numbers into perspective on the other side of the ledger. Fixed costs in the budget increased this year by $2.2 million. In other words, our new growth covers a little over half of the increase in fixed costs. Without growth, Salem taxpayers would be on the hook for all of that increase. The other big driver we saw in the budget for this fiscal year were increases in police and fire personnel costs. The city had recently settled our contracts with these collective bargaining units, so the increased salaries rolled onto the budget for this year. Together, those public safety personnel costs increased by $1.6 million this year over last, which is an increase of about 8%, double the increase of the total budget, which again went up just by about 4%. This isn't a judgment on those cost centers, but I share it so you and so the public watching at home understand what it is we're paying for. For the most part, for the largest part, because it is the largest part of our budget, it's going to our people. Just like the firefighters we celebrated earlier this evening. Personnel costs account for close to 3/4 of our total budget. It's also going to fund the delivery of critical services upon which we all rely. And it's going to fix costs. I'm proud that our city is able to leverage tools like receipts, free cash, and new growth, as well as opportunities like grant funding instead of tax dollars on certain costs and certain projects. It's helping us keep a relatively low tax bill increase compared to many other comparable communities. And it's helped us secure our certification from the Government Finance Officers Association, and just a few weeks ago, reaffirmation by S&P of our historic bond rating. I'm grateful for the partnership of the City Council in securing a healthy and strong fiscal foundation that we enjoy here in Salem, and I look forward to continue working alongside all of you. Thank you very much, and with that, I will turn it over to our assessing staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I would like to start by introducing myself and the assessing team. For the public viewers watching or here tonight, and the councilors who might be new or have not gone through the classification process, and to briefly explain some of the assessing department's duties throughout the year which brought us here. I'm Stephen Cortez, Director of Assessing. Tonight, we have two of our board members in attendance, Bob Millerick and Tina Zolano, along with two assistant assessors, Jim Bond and Jim Hall. We operate on a fiscal year, which runs from July 1st to June 30th. Throughout the year, we have conducted about 1,400 property inspections for reasons such as building permit work, sales, and DOR mandated cyclical inspection program, which is an attempt to inspect every property on a 9 to 10 year basis. Within that amount of time, things can change, grow, depending on maintenance and or depreciation. We also gather information about different classes of properties by utilizing our sales verification forms, income and expense forms, and personal property form of lists. The information presented to you here tonight is an accumulation of the vast data we've gathered and is a reflection of the market during a snapshot of time. There is a lot of content in this packet, so I'll direct you to the most important pieces as we go through the slides. Hopefully, the additional information will help give you a bigger picture and context. Page 2, task classification. The purpose of the classification hearing is to provide information to the City Council in order for them to make policy decisions in accordance with the requirements of Chapter 40, Section 56 of the Massachusetts General Laws, as amended by Chapter 200 of the Acts 1988. There is an excerpt from that which lays out that cities and towns may elect to shift the tax burden among major property classes within certain limits established by law. The residential factor governs the percentage of tax levy to be paid by the residential class. The difference is then shifted to the commercial, industrial, and personal property class, or the CIP. The minimum residential factor, or MRF, established by the Commissioner of Revenue is used to make certain that the shift of the tax burden complies with the Classification Act. It is recommended that the City Council adopt a minimum residential factor of 0.858484 for the City of Salem for the fiscal year 2024. The Council must also vote on 3 other tax policy options: open space discount, residential exemption, and small commercial exemption. This year is an interim certification year, which is every 5 years, and the assessments have already been approved by the Department of Revenue. The statistical data presented herein is intended to assist the City Council in its recommended decisions for the tax rate shift and 3 options I mentioned. Page 3, key terms. Here are some of the key terms you will see in the presentation. The levy. The property tax levy is the revenue a community can raise through real and personal property taxes. Levy limit, the maximum amount a community can levy each year, which is equal to last year's levy plus 2.5%, plus new growth, plus any debt exclusion or override if applicable. The levy ceiling, the maximum amount the levy limit can be in a given fiscal year, equal to 2.5% of the total full and fair cash value of all taxable real property and personal property in the community. The levy limit is equal to the lesser of the two. New growth, increase in tax base due to new construction, parcel subdivisions, condo conversions, and property renovations, but not due to market revaluation. It is calculated by multiplying the increased assessed value by the prior year's tax rate for the property class. Excess levy capacity, the difference between the actual levy and the levy limit, what a community is legally permitted to bill, and the tax bills to be paid. Page 4, city overview. The first pie chart on the left shows the breakdown of the city's parcel by major property classes as a percentage. Residential makes up the majority with 89%, followed by personal property with 6%, commercial at 5%, and industrial at 1%. The chart on the right represents a breakdown of all real property, which does not include personal property, and shows a more in-depth view of the residential class, which single families at 5,012 parcels make up the majority of 38%, followed by residential condos with 4,704 parcels and 35%, the remainder being 2 families at 11%, commercial at 5%, 3 families at 4%, apartments over 4 units at 3%, land and accessory use at 2%, and industrial and mixed use at 1% respectively. Page 5, analysis. The fiscal year 2024 values are based on the value of a property as of January 1st, 2023, and were primarily developed with arm's length valid sales from calendar year 2022, which do not include foreclosure, family sales, estate sales, etc. Personal property forms of lists and income and expense forms from commercial, industrial, mixed use, and apartments with 4 or more units. Under the guidelines of the Department of Revenue and Massachusetts General Laws, assessors are required to assess property at 100% full and fair cash valuation. This means all assessed values must reflect the market, i.e. what properties are selling for. Size, type, year built, and quality of construction, number of rooms, kitchens and baths, fireplaces, types of heating systems, etc. are all examples of the data listed on individual property record cards before a valuation process can begin. Assessors may not have to go inside each property before every revaluation if records are kept up to date and building permits are checked and recorded for changes on individual properties. Finding the full and fair cash value or market value of a property involves discovering what similar properties are selling for, what the property would cost today to replace, and what financial factors such as interest rates may be affecting the real estate market. Valuation techniques for commercial and industrial properties also include analysis from an investment point of view, since the purchase price the buyer is willing to pay depends on part of the return they expect to receive. Like property is extrapolated and compared within that class, apples to apples. Sales in calendar year 2022, which are used to determine FY24 values. There were 589 sales utilized, including 2 years of sales for mixed use, industrial, and land, 177 single-family sales, 327 residential condo sales, 64 multifamily sales, 16 commercial and industrial sales, 5 other mixed use and land sales. Page 6, analysis adjustments. The market analysis resulted in the following general adjustments made. Single-family properties and residential condos both increased in value by 12.3%. Two-family properties increased in value by 11.6%. Three-family properties increased in value by 10.8%. Apartment buildings with 4 or more units increased by 1.9%. Personal property accounts increased in value by 6.6%, and commercial properties increased in value by 3.8%. We look at arm's length sales that occur in the calendar year 2022, the start of the post-pandemic factor on the market with rising interest rates, albeit still not at the level that they are currently. During this time, we still did not see a change in bidding wars and offers above listing prices, especially with residential properties, which is frequently stated on the returned sales verification questionnaires that we send to all buyers. Compared to last year, the apartment buildings with 4 or more units had the highest overall change value in 16.8%. This year, it was the lowest residential land use code increase at 1.9%. This is our smallest residential group, which had almost half of the sales that were analyzed in the previous year. This attributed to our analysis being tighter. Single-family and residential condo units stayed steady as both increased by 12.3%, very close to the previous year. 2 and 3 family parcels went up from last year to end up closer to the other class codes, and the overall city increase of 10%. Commercial properties went up 3.8%, down from 4.4% last year, but still in a consistent range. Industrial properties are still seeing an increase in demand for manufacturing and shipping needs, as those values increased overall by 16.8%. Salem's limited supply drives prices up for those looking to own in the city. Also, an important portion of this is the power plant adjustment. It's important to note that these overall statistical values for each major property class, individual value changes will vary depending on specific property data, the style, condition, upkeep, depreciation, new construction, location, amenities, etc. Overall, the city saw an increase in the total value of $833,916,417, or 10.6%. Page 7, value comparison. This table is a comparison of last fiscal year value FY23 versus FY24. These values and the changes represents the entire class, not individual parcels. Highlighted in yellow are the major classes with columns 3, 4, 5, and 6 representing the parcel count and assessed values, and the last 4 columns showing the difference between them. As shown in the last slide, the percentage difference in value is identified in the far right column. At the bottom, shaded in blue, are the major classes as a whole, with the total residential value going up 11.3%, total commercial going up 4.5%. These two include the mixed-use portions, which are broken up into their respective class makeup. The total industry up 12.5%, total personal property up 6.6%, and again, overall value for the city went up 10.6%. Page 8, values by class. This table shows the fiscal year 24 values by class. The residential total is $7,298,545,547. The commercial assessed value total is $670,502,074. The total industrial assessed value is $423,013,416. And the personal property total assessed value is $283,628,910. That gives the city a total taxable value of $8,675,689,947. Page 9, percentage of value by class. Here is another fiscal year comparison display of FY23 versus FY24. The residential class makes up 84.13% of this total city value. Commercial makes up 7.73%, industrial 4.88%, and personal property 3.27%. Again, the value difference from last year is 10.6%, or $833,916,417. The bar graph at the bottom shows a healthy and sustained change in value over the past few years. 2020 was higher due to the power plant coming online. Page 10, assessed value history. Here is a line graph showing the assessed value history from 1994 to 2024. You can see the dip when the recession happened and the rebound after that affected the residential values and continues to climb. Page 11, new growth. Throughout the year, the assessing department reviews and captures new growth value due mostly to new construction as well as parcels subject to taxation for the first time, such as subdivisions or condominium conversions, new personal property, and parcels that were previously exempt. It does not include value increases caused by normal market forces or by revaluation. New growth is submitted to the Department of Revenue for review and certification. The City of Salem saw a total of $65,752,718 in new growth value that included but was not limited to 37 new condo conversions, 3 new residential parcels, and 2 new commercial parcels taxed for the first time, 2 expired TIF properties that are now fully taxable, 87 new personal property accounts, large construction projects which include 47 Levitt Street, completion of a mixed-use 25-unit apartment building, 34 Peabody Street, 21-unit apartment building, 64 Grove Street, the beginning construction of a 38-unit apartment building in its first phase, 602 Loring Ave, completion of a 20-unit apartment building, completion of 435-433 Highland Ave storage facility, and ongoing construction of the new tropical products building located at 355 Highland Ave. The top 10 FY24 residential growth properties make up 36.57% of the total residential growth. As with most years, personal property accounts bring in a substantial amount of new growth tax dollars due mostly to the utility and telecom accounts. The DOR approved new growth value resulted in $1,181,552 tax dollars in allowable tax levy growth. This amount is used in calculating the levy limit for FY24. Page 12, new growth examples. This is just a sample of the mentioned properties, with 64 Grove Street having a growth value of $3,390,000, 34 Peabody Street with a growth value of $2,279,900, 602 Loring Ave, $2,194,800, and 443 Highland Ave, $1,777,300 in growth value. Page 13, growth by class. Here's the fiscal year 24 new growth broken down into class and tax dollars. First is the residential breakdown showing the new growth value, the tax dollars from that growth, and the percentage that makes up the residential class. Single families make up 26.10% of the residential growth. Residential condos make up 24.17%. 2 and 3 families, 17.77%. Multifamily parcels with 4 units and up made up 31.82%. Land and other mixed use made up 0.12% and 0.02% respectively. Residential growth in tax dollars comes to $470,062. Commercial tax dollars from growth is $160,383. Industrial tax dollars from growth is $44,748, and personal property tax dollars from growth is $506,359. Again, the percentages for the CIP class is shown to the right of the tax dollars, and below that is the total overall new growth value and the tax dollars of $1,181,552 when rounding. Page 14, historic growth. This bar graph represents the growth in tax dollars over the years starting from 2012. Again, the year 2020 was higher due to the power plant construction. Salem is a very old city with most of its land being utilized. At this point, most new growth comes down to property owners repurposing existing sites. Page 15, determining the tax levy and a breakdown of the city budget. First, we start with the total budget and other articles approved by the City Council starting back in June 2023, which is $204,732,591. Then you minus the state aid, local receipts, enterprise and CPA funds, and other revenues, and that will leave you with the amount remaining to be collected from property taxes. This is the tax levy, which is $117,433,650. The pie chart to the right shows each as a percentage of the total budget. Page 16, the levy limit. This slide explains the levy limit. Proposition 2.5 limits the amount of revenue a community can raise through real and personal property taxes, the tax levy, from year to year. The maximum amount a community can levy in any given year is called the levy limit. Under Proposition 2.5, a community's levy limit increases automatically by two factors. One, an incremental increase of 2.5% of the prior year's levy limit, and two, a dollar amount derived from the value of new construction, condo conversions, subdivisions, and other growth in the local tax base since the previous year, or the new growth. A community can also assess additional taxes to pay the debt services, a principal and interest costs for specific capital projects. An example would be a new school. This additional amount, debt exclusion, is added to the levy limit for the life of the debt. The combined total is referred to as the maximum allowable levy. The maximum allowable levy for FY24 is $125,749,807. The estimated levy for FY24 will be $117,433,650. This leaves an excess levy capacity of $8,316,157. This is the difference between the maximum property tax revenue a community is legally permitted to bill and the tax bills paid. To the right are the calculations. Page 17, historic levy limits and excess levy capacity. These tables show the history of the levy limits, and excess levy capacity over the last 2 decades. The historic tax levy has remained relatively steady, while the excess levy capacity has been increasing over the years. Again, this is the difference between what we could be raising and the amounts actually levied. We haven't collected close to the full levy limit in over 14 years. Page 18, the City Council is here tonight to take a vote on the following. The selection of a residential factor, the recommended at 0.858484, which is a 1.75 CIP shift, open space discount option, residential exemption option, and a small commercial exemption option. Page 19, minimum residential factor. Starting with the minimum residential factor, the City Council must vote to determine the percentage of the tax levy to be paid by each class of real property and personal property for the fiscal year. In determining these percentages, the council must first adopt a residential factor that must be an amount not less than the minimum residential factor, or the MRF, calculated by the Commissioner of Revenue. The residential factor adopted governs the percentage of tax levy to be borne by the residential property owners. It does not change the total tax levy or the assessed values. An MRF of 1 would yield a single tax rate. This is calculated by the tax levy divided by the total value times 1,000 equals the tax rate. For fiscal year 24, a single tax rate would be $13.54 for all classes. A factor lower than 1 would shift more of the tax burden to the commercial, industrial, and personal property parcels. Historically, Salem has adopted a split tax rate, one for the residential open space and the other for commercial, industrial, and personal property, also again known as the CIP. It is recommended that the City Council adopt a minimum residential factor of 0.858484 for the City of Salem for FY24. The following slides are examples the MRF shift will have on the major classes based on the averages. It is important to keep in mind that this is overall averages and not individual property tax bills, as those could vary depending on factors such as sales and renovations. Page 20, average average single-family tax bill. With the recommended shift for fiscal year 24, the average single-family home value is $580,237, with an average bill increase of $285 from last year. 37% of Salem single-family homes are assessed above the average, and 63% of Salem single-family homes are assessed below the average. The average single-family bill will increase with a 5-year average of 3%, despite the single-family residential values going up 12.3%, as shown on page 7. Page 21, average residential condo bill. For FY24, the average residential condo value is $433,388, with an average bill increase of $169 from last year. 49% of Salem's residential condos are assessed above the average and 51% are assessed below the average. Like the single-family class code, the average residential condo bill will increase with a 5-year average of 3%, despite the condo values going up 12.3%. Page 22, average single-family and condo bill. The average single-family tax bill will increase $285, or roughly $23.75 per month, and the average residential condo bill will increase $169, or roughly $14.08 per month. Again, single-family and residential condo units make up 80% of the residential units in the city. Page 23, average single-family tax increase by community. Here is the average single-family tax bill increase bar graph for the fiscal year 24 with surrounding municipalities. Salem's average single-family tax increase this year is between Peabody and Saugus with $285. We are at the low end of the spread compared to last year when we went up $289 and we're in the middle of the list. Our finance department and mayor's office continues to work with the available funds to keep an impact on the primary class to a minimum. Page 24, average single-family tax bill increase municipal comparison. These two tables show a comparison of the single-family tax increase over the past 5 years in surrounding municipalities. The table on the left shows the average yearly bill, while the table on the right shows the average increase. Compiled on the far right of that is the 5-year average, with the city of Salem second to the bottom of the list with $180 5-year average single-family tax bill increase. Only Lynn is below us with $167 5-year increased average. Below those two tables is a bar graph depicting the single-family average tax bill increase. Again, you will see Salem has not raised the single-family tax bill as much as the surrounding communities have done over the past 5 years. Page 25, average two-family bill. The average two-family value is $633,384, with an increase of $235 from last year. 40% of Salem's two-family homes are assessed above the average, and 60% are assessed below the average. Page 26, average three-family bill. The average three-family value for FY24 is $746,238, which results in an average tax bill increase of $294. 42% of Salem's three-family homes are assessed above the average, while 58% are assessed below the average. Page 27, average and median commercial bill. The average commercial property value is $852,377, with an average tax bill decrease of $600. 25% of Salem's commercial properties are assessed above the average, and 75% are assessed below the average. This range in the average value is indicative of a diverse subset of commercial properties. Since the commercial class is very broad and encompasses everything from small businesses like corner stores, small offices and retail, to large plazas, commercial parks and warehouses, it is hard to identify a truly average commercial property. It is more appropriate to use the median for this particular exercise. The median commercial value is $429,000, and the median commercial tax bill would decrease by negative $245, or minus $20.42 per month. Page 28, what does it mean to adopt the residential factor? Here is the proposed shift for the major classes. Residential class will assume 72.22% of the share, commercial class will assume 13.53%, industrial 8.53%, and personal property 5.72% of the share. Page 29, tax levy calculation. Assuming the recommended 1.75 CIP split or 0.858484 minimum residential factor, the residential tax rate will go down to $11.62 per thousand, and the commercial industrial personal property tax rate will go down $23.69. The total residential value times $11.62 tax rate, and the total CIP values times the $23.69 commercial rate gives us the FY24 levy of $117,433,650 when rounded. Page 30, tax rate history. This line graph is of Salem's historic tax rates starting from 1987 to today. They are not adjusted for inflation. In general, when the market reflects that sales prices are going up, typically the tax rates go down. This is subject to the approved budget and how much is needed to be recouped in tax dollars or the levy. For example, if the budget stayed the same, yet the values went up, the tax rate will go down to yield the same return needed. Page 31, additional tax rate options. These three tax policy options may be adopted by communities that have been certified assessing at full cash value by the Department of Revenue. Open space discount, small commercial exemption option, and residential exemption option. The choice of either or both of the open space and residential option affects whether a community chooses to shift the tax burden within the residential class. The small commercial option affects the tax rate within the commercial industrial class. The following pages provide relevant information and data for each option. The Board of Assessors has determined that these options do not pertain to Salem, and such options should not be considered by the City Council. Page 32, open space discount. Open space is defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 2A as land which is not otherwise classified and which is not taxable under provisions of Chapter 61, 61A, 61B, or taxable under a permanent conservation restriction, and which land is not held for the production of income but is maintained in an open or natural condition and which contributes significantly to the benefit and enjoyment of the public. An exemption of up to 25% could be adopted for property classified as Class 2 open space. Currently, there is only one community in Massachusetts that grants an open space discount, and Salem has no parcels that are Class 2 open space. Page 33, small commercial exemption option. An exemption of up to 10% of the total commercial property valuation may be adopted for eligible commercial properties. Granting this exemption raises the commercial tax rate and shifts the commercial tax burden from qualifying properties to ineligible commercial and all industrial properties, not including personal property Class 5. This is a shift only in the commercial industrial class and does not affect the residential properties in any way. As for the exemption guidelines, the parcel must be occupied as of January 1st by a business with an average annual employment of no more than 10 employees at all locations during the previous calendar year, as certified by the Department of Employment and Training. If the property has more than one business, i.e. a strip mall, each business must have fewer than 10 employees for the exemption to be granted. All would have to qualify. Building value cannot exceed $1 million. Exemption is granted to the owner of the real estate, the building owner, not the business owner or the renter, as the law does not require the tax relief to be passed through to the business owner. Reasons against adopting this exemption: most businesses in the city of Salem rent or lease their workspace. This would shift the burden onto any vacant commercial lot and onto all of Salem's industrial properties, which make up the smallest residential class with only 103 parcels. This exemption would shift a greater burden onto higher value properties who already pay a larger portion of the total tax share, 22%, in addition to the commercial tax rate shift. This hard-to-track exemption is applicable in communities that have a substantial commercial industrial base with a sufficient number of large employers, one that could sustain and increase without losing or repelling businesses. There is only 14 municipalities out of 332 communities in the Commonwealth that have adopted this exemption. Page 34, residential exemption option. The residential exemption reduces the taxable valuation of each residential parcel that is the taxpayer's principal residence, owner-occupied and primary domicile. Granting this exemption raises the residential tax rate for all and shifts the residential tax burden from low-valued and owner-occupied homes to higher-value non-owner-occupied homes, which will experience a substantial increase in taxes. Apartments and multifamily parcels, which are not owner-occupied, would also see a significant higher tax burden. An individual who is granted this exemption could still end up paying more due to the valuation break-even threshold and the higher residential tax rate. Exemption is a misnomer since this is actually a tax shift and provides a redistribution of the tax levy among residential property owners only within the residential class 1. This would not affect commercial or industrial properties in any way. Adoption of a residential exemption is of benefit only in those communities that have a substantial number of non-primary residences. Only 18 out of 352 communities in the Commonwealth have adopted a residential exemption. Cities and towns that utilize this tax option generally have a large percentage of non-primary residential rental units, Boston, Brookline, Cambridge, etc., or a large amount of resort seasonal tourist rentals, Nantucket, Provincetown, Truro, etc. Analysis into this exemption does not yield an advantageous benefit for the city of Salem. Most of the improved residential parcels are the principal residences of the taxpayer of record. Therefore, there is little or no benefit in adopting a residential exemption, one which Salem has never adopted. This program is also very costly to implement and maintain, as there would need to be extra staff associated with tracking and overseeing the non-owner occupied properties. We currently offer multiple personal exemption clauses for those most in need of financial assistance. This would also largely affect the rental market, as many apartment buildings are not owner occupied, and therefore rents would likely increase to cover the higher taxes. Unlike this residential option, a personal exemption clause granted does not affect an applicant's neighbor's tax bill, as this option essentially pits the haves versus the have-nots. Page 35, exemptions. So those are the three options you're voting on tonight. However, before we end, I would like to just step aside briefly to moment to highlight the current exemption clauses the program and programs the city has to offer. A personal exemption or a clause exemption is a release from obligation to pay all or a portion of the taxes assessed on your property. They are based on the personal circumstances of the property owner as of July 1st, 2023. The Massachusetts legislature has enacted the following clause exemptions, which, if granted, will be deducted on the third and fourth quarter tax bills. Applicants must own and occupy their homes, as well as meet any and all qualification criteria as of that date. With limited exceptions, you may only receive one exemption under Mass General Law for each fiscal year. The table on the right shows the exemption clauses, a little description of each and the amounts able to be deducted, which fluctuate based on what was paid in the previous year. There are three means tested or income qualifying exemptions: the 17D, which is an asset qualifying exemption for widows, minors, and seniors 70 years or older; the 41C, which is an income and asset qualifying exemption for seniors 65 years or older. The limits for each are listed on the left side text box; and the CPA exemption for low-income persons of any age or low to moderate income seniors 60 years or older. The City Council just approved the continuation of the senior tax exemption program, or the circuit breaker exemption, which, if granted, the circuit breaker credit from the state when filing your 2022 taxes is used by deducting half of that from your real estate tax bill. We also offer an exemption for the blind, an exemption for widows or minor property owners of the fallen firefighters or police officers killed in the line of duty. And then we have a few clauses for disabled veterans, their surviving spouses, or Gold Star parents. In addition to these clauses, we offer the option for seniors 65 years or older to defer all or a portion of their taxes, which is then due upon the sale of the property or when the homeowner passes away. And lastly, the Senior Workout Program is available for income qualifying seniors 60 years or older to sign up with the Council on Aging starting in January to be a volunteer and offer their skills-related services within city departments. I find this program not only beneficial for the departments they work in, but also for the participating seniors who are able to put their accumulative knowledge to use and, best of all, get a reduction in their taxes. In conclusion, the purpose of this hearing is to establish the proportion of the tax levy shared by the residential and commercial class of the property. The assessor's role in this process is to determine the values based on use of all properties in the city, determine the amount of new growth in the property taxation each year, and determine the amount needed to be reserved for abatements, exemptions, and the overlay. Our values and new growth have already been set and approved by the Massachusetts Commissioner of Revenue. In June, the City Council conducted budget hearings and approved, reduced, or rejected the recommended appropriations brought forth to run municipal government. These decisions determine if the property tax collected for fiscal year 24 would be higher or lower than the property tax collected for fiscal year 23, the tax levy. The assessing department, as always, is open to discussing with those that need assistance any applicable exemptions or deferral program. We encourage all interested to visit our website for the information, plus more available details at salem.com/assessors, where they can reach us by email, or we are always available by phone or can stop by anytime during City Hall business hours, no appointments needed. And our staff will be happy to assist you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen, for the presentation. Lots of info, as always. We'll open it up to the counselors for questions. Councillor Cohen?
Thank you, President Stott. That was like 100 mouthfuls and really impressive stuff. I have two questions. One is, I remember I got solar panels in 2011. I got a visit from one of the assessors yes, Jim. And my question is, once you visit one property and assess whatever that renovation would be, let's say, I'm just using solar as an example, do you then, instead of going to every property that would install solar, would you, or any other similar kind of renovation, would you just create a formula? And the reason I ask is because a lot of people get lease solar versus purchase solar. Does that factor into your assessments?
Okay, so solar roof panels are not, do not affect the assessed value of the properties.
Oh, okay.
However, if you were to take out a permit for renovation of a kitchen or a bathroom or an addition or anything like that, no two are the same. So it wouldn't be applied the same to each. They're all looked at individually.
Thank you. And my other question is, I don't know if it's for you or the mayor, the lower increase for commercial properties, especially because our commercial base is so low, 5%, I think you said, is that meant to encourage more commercial investment in Salem?
I would defer to the mayor on that, but I think that, we follow the market. So whatever the market is dictating, we follow. I believe that obviously the lower taxes for them is favorable for someone who wants to move into the city of Salem and set up shop here. And I don't know if you would like to add anything.
Yes, the tax rate is, retrospective to a certain extent. They're looking at the market and what's happened. So it's not intended to be an incentive to try to encourage a particular type of use. I do think that, one of the things that was highlighted in the slide is that around 10% of our new growth was in commercial, which is encouraging since it's about 7%, 6 or 7% of our total property is commercial. So we're exceeding that, but it doesn't affect the rate isn't used as a policy tool to encourage that kind of thing.
Councilor McLean?
Thank you, President Stott, through you to Stephen. Thank you for the presentation. I just wondered if you could briefly explain what constitutes personal property, and within that class sort of speak to what may be the driving factor and sort of the growth and value within that class.
Yeah. So personal property is when you have a business and you have chairs, tables, registers, those are all taxable personal property within Massachusetts. So any municipality, you get taxed on, if you own a business, you will get a personal property tax bill. Now there are some exempt items such as refrigeration for manufacturing and so on. But what causes the major increase is what's also included in personal property is the telephone poles, the wires, the conduits, and everything that's electrical. And that really, when they're digging up the road and they're putting in new ones, that's going to increase their assessed value. So those happen to have a major impact on the overall personal property adjustments over the years.
You're talking about, I understand what you're talking about, utility upgrades, but are you speaking to upgrades that occur within the confines of a lot?
Whatever, if it's a company and they're doing it throughout the city, it doesn't matter if it's in a specific parcel or not. I don't know if that's what you're asking.
I guess what I'm asking is, right, like we have public utilities, right, and we make upgrades that benefit the lots that abut them. So where does it begin to become personal property versus city property, if that makes sense?
Yeah, if the city is not the owner of those, then it's owned by Boston Gas or National Grid or Mass Electric. So that's those are the ones who own it.
Thank you.
Councilor Marcillo?
Thank you, President. Thank you for the presentation. I just want to take a minute to underscore that we have one tax rate. because I always get this question after this, because we very generously break down the property by type to single family and 2 families and condos and things like that. And people get very confused about why theirs went up more than a single family, for instance. And I always get that question. There's one tax rate, but this is just the city trying to be full of information and get as much out as they can to help you plan, I guess.
This is, yes, correct. There is one residential tax rate and one commercial tax rate. So if it's a residential property, you're going to have the residential tax rate. If it's mixed use, then you'll have the portion of residential being residential rate and the portion that's commercial being the commercial rate. Now, we show this information because it's used by the DOR to show change in the major classes. So that's why we put it in the packet. And their averages, as you said. So individual parcels are not necessarily going to go up by that specific amount. This is just to show you, the council, how the tax rate will affect an average in that class.
Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you, President Stott. Thank you, Stephen, for a very thorough explanation. After 16 years of doing this, the biggest questions that people are going to ask is, one, for a single-family home, what's that bill going to go up? It's $285 approximately on average, based on the average median price of a single-family home in Salem. Is that correct?
That's the average value.
Yep.
Yes.
285.
Yep.
Okay. And then we left a little more than $8 million to the levy, meaning we could have raised taxes more to fund other things, but we decided not to tax to the full amount.
Correct.
And the third most important thing that we saw today, in my opinion, it was all very good, was the 5-year average. Mm-hmm. Because I always say it all the time when the government tries to get into my business and wants to tax me. Some 1 year you make more money and 1 year you make less, and whatever it is, it should be on an average as opposed to individual years. But when we can't, I understand you can't do it that way. But when you look at the 5-year average slide, that's the slide that any counselor in this room should be highlighting. Is the fact that when you compare our 5-year average to other communities, 1 year we may have been more, 1 year, but on average, we're on the lower end. And so those are the big things that we take away from this meeting today, in my opinion, is the fact that what's the bill? How much do we leave to the levy, and how does our average compare? Because the rest of it is a big math problem. Because as your value goes up, the rate goes down, because the money you're trying to capture at the end is a fixed amount. So it's a big, complicated math problem. And I give you all the credit in the world. And where's Anna? She's hiding over there someplace. Anna's hiding over there. But I give you guys all the credit in the world for coming to figure out the complicated math problem that works backwards. But in the end of the day, when Dustin writes his article, which he already wrote one, he's going to say $285, and we left $8 million something to the levy, and our 5-year average puts us on the low side. And that's what we should be highlighting, because at Salem, we try, we could spend more money, but we choose to try to be fiscally responsible, and that's what we've done. And those averages and all those pie charts and those graphs, for anyone who wants to pay attention, that's what they explain. And I want to thank you for all your due diligence, and thank your team that's behind me. I can't see them because they're behind me, for all the work that they do. But thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the council? Councilor McLean?
Sorry, this one just popped into my head listening to the Ward 1 councilor's remarks, because I did note that while the average tax bill is going to go up a given amount, at least in the single family class, most people were below the average. And so I was curious whether, similar to what you did for the commercial class, do you have the information for what the median tax rate is for the residential classes? Or the median change in the tax bill, I should say, to be specific.
$265.
Well, it's just pretty close. It's not that much different. Okay, thank you.
Can I just say one last thing? Thank you, Councilor McCarthy, and Councilor McLean and whoever else is not continuing. I appreciate the questions. They're always helping me to get better at my job. And also, thank you.
Thank you. As this is a public hearing, we will open it up to comments from the public. If anyone is appearing in favor in person, you may make your way to the podium to state your comment. If you are joining us, do you mind closing the screen share now at this point? Because we're going to go to Zoom land as well. If anybody is on Zoom and would wish to make public comment, just use the raise hand function. We will give a minute. No hands up. So I am going to change to anyone that might be appearing in opposition. You may make your way to the podium here in council chambers, or if you are joining us on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function and we will call on you to speak. Seeing none. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, President Stott. I move that the public hearing be closed.
Councilor McCarthy moves that the public hearing be closed. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor that the public hearing be closed? Any opposed? Public hearing is closed. We are now on page 9, communications from the mayor. Follow the
Everybody there? We've in order that the sum of $4,998,765.15 is hereby appropriated from general fund balance reserved for free cash to the following special revenue funds: stabilization fund, capital improvement fund, and OPEB funds. The amount of free cash to be transferred is per the city's financials policies.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for suspension of the rules.
Councilor McLean moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection, Councilor McLean.
I'm going to extend that suspension of the rules to invite our finance director if she would like to make any comments on this, because she will explain it much better than I can.
Thank you. Seeing no objection, Ms. Friedman.
Thank you. The order in front of you tonight is consistent with the city's free cash policy that annually requests to take from our certified free cash, which this year minimized it just before I walked up here by accident, top of my head to tell you how much it was.
I'm sorry, first, while you look that up, Councilor McLean, did you have a motion before we get into discussion?
I'll be moving for adoption.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption. Okay, under discussion.
So annually the city, under municipal finance law, we're required, the state will certify our free cash, which is our annual surplus at the end of the year. And our free cash was certified at $11,108,367 this year. The city's free cash policy provides annually for certain transfers to come out of that balance to go to certain reserve funds. This is a very positive influence on our bond rating. They like to see that we are setting funding aside for potential rainy day and for other liabilities. So under our free cash policy, 10% would be transferred from free cash to our stabilization fund, which is a little over $1.1 million in the order in front of you, to our capital improvement fund, 30% from free cash, and that would move $3.3 million over. And this is a great way to reduce the city's future debt service. And particularly these days with rising interest rates, having this funding available on a pay-as-we-go basis saves taxpayers money. And additionally, 5% from free cash to the other post-employment benefits fund, which is over $555,000 on the order in front of you. And that's to start making payments toward our unfunded liability for retiree healthcare benefits. So in total, that's just under $5 million in free cash that's requesting to be moved to those critical reserve funds that the city has. Thank you.
Any discussion from the council? On Councilor McLean's motion for adoption that the sum of $4,998,765.15 be appropriated from the general fund balance reserved for free cash to the following special reserve funds. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We've been ordered that the sum of $3,189,010 shall be raised and appropriated from the City of Salem General Fund for the purpose of supporting the fiscal year 2024 Trash Enterprise Fund expense subsidy, which represents the amount to be raised less operational expenses.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for suspension of the rules.
Councilor McLean moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection, Councilor McLean.
I further move for adoption.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption. Under discussion.
This is a procedural vote, is my understanding. The City of Salem has not just recently decided to create this subsidy support for the Trash Enterprise Fund, but for the last several years, the state has started to require us to take a separate vote in order to do so. And so this is the vote we have to do in order to support it with our cash.
Any further discussion? No. On Councilor McLean's motion for adoption that the sum of $3,189,010 be raised and appropriated from the City of Salem General Fund for the purpose of supporting the fiscal year 2024 Trash Enterprise Fund expense subsidy. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $1,995,611 is hereby appropriated from the following receipts reserved for appropriation accounts to reduce the tax rate amount to be raised by taxation for the fiscal year 24 tax rate.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Council President. I move for suspension of the rules.
For suspension of the rules, seeing no objection, Councilor McLean.
I further move for adoption.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Folks are probably familiar with these accounts. We've worked with them a few times already over the course of the term. These are some of the locations in our city which generate revenue for the services that they support. And so we are sweeping cash from this money that has already been made into our fund in order to lower the tax rate, essentially. But if anybody has any further questions, I'm happy to further suspend the rules and allow our finance director to take the podium.
Any further questions, comments from the council? Under discussion? Seeing no discussion, on Councilor McLean's motion for adoption that the sum of $1,995,611 be appropriated from the following receipts reserved for appropriation accounts to reduce the tax rate amount to be raised by taxation when the fiscal year 2024 tax rate is set. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We've been ordered that the sum of $1,250,000 is hereby appropriated from the fund balance reserved for appropriation free cash account to reduce the tax rate amount to be raised by taxation for the fiscal year 24 tax rate.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for suspension of the rules.
Councilor McLean moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection, Councilor McLean.
I further move for adoption.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Same goal here as the previous order. We are using cash in hand to help reduce the tax burden. In this case, we are taking it from our recently certified free cash. I have one question of my own for our finance director, so I will invite you back up. And it is a rather general question. If you could just remind anybody who may be following along sort of what the function is of free cash for the city and how we determine how much free cash we're going to take and sweep in to reduce the tax burden versus keep it in free cash.
Thank you so much. So free cash, as I mentioned, it's technically surplus. It's not the best word for it. It's basically the annual sort of rolling balance the city has year over year based on any revenues that come in higher than our budgeted estimates. Budgeting revenues conservatively is a sound practice. So if you're weathering ups and downs through economic cycles, you don't want to have your revenue come in below your estimates and have to do mid-year budget cuts, which is very challenging. So it's your revenues that come in above your budget, and it's your any unexpended appropriations. Say there were a lot of turnover in a department one year and some salary appropriations were turned back, and all of that rolls together at the end of the year. And based on how all that comes together, that is what makes up that certified free cash number, less potentially some other things that get covered based on DOR regulations. And so looking at that balance of that free cash, knowing that the free cash policy is critical to the city's overall financial health, that's taken into account by how much is going in, looking at what would remain after that policy, assessing where we are in terms of sort of that balance of what the what the average tax bill increases would look like if we didn't take that amount of money. So for example, for this year, if there were no free cash appropriated, the average single family tax bill will be much closer to $400. And so that was balanced against $11 million certified in free cash, almost $5 million of that going to our other reserves, left with about $6 million left over, taking $1.25 million of that to lower that burden on taxpayers. And so it's an annual kind of calculation based on how healthy our free cash is certified and what it looks like when we roll up all the numbers for the tax rate and try to find a balance that makes sense to ensure that we're mitigating as much of that tax burden on taxpayers as possible while still maintaining the fiscal health for the city's budget.
Don't run away. Don't run away.
Run.
Can you sort of quickly speak to some of the things that we then end up using that free cash for during the cycle? Because we do use this free cash going forward.
Absolutely. And I believe there is another order in front of you tonight. And so free cash is considered a one-time revenue, a one-time resource. And so best practice indicates that that should only be then used for a one-time one-time project. And so typically they're used for capital projects that might come up that were not anticipated when the city did its annual capital planning process. And so, for example, if a boiler were to fail in the middle of the year, this is the type of thing that we like to have available so that it can be accessible to do those emergency repairs. And so when there are those types of projects that come up in the middle of the year, the free cash is really the best place to go for some of those if we don't already have funds appropriated somewhere else.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from the council? On Councillor McLean's motion for adoption that the sum of $1,250,000 be appropriated from the funds balance reserve for appropriation free cash account to reduce the tax rate amount to be raised by taxation when the fiscal year 2024 tax rate is set in accordance with the recommendation of His Honor the Mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $400,000 is hereby transferred from the general fund balance reserve for free cash and appropriated to the following account in the capital improvement fund below for costs associated with the redesign of Fort Avenue at Winter Island Road, Columbus Avenue, and Columbus Square.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for suspension of the rules.
Councillor McLean moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection, Councillor McLean.
I further move for adoption.
Councillor McLean moves for adoption. Under discussion?
Not too much discussion here. Here we see again free cash going to work pretty quickly. I think everybody is probably aware we've had some unpleasant accidents in very recent history at this intersection, and so it'll be very good to see our pedestrians get a little more safety installed there.
Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you, President Stott. I want to echo that. I want to thank the mayor and the finance team for bringing in this additional funds, obviously, in today's era of putting things out to bid. Everything seems to come in more because just the way we are lately, and hopefully that trend will go back down. But we had allotted a bunch of money towards this project, and it's the councilor-elect behind me is in her neighborhood association is very instrumental in having a whole bunch of meetings with regards to this, and I was happy as acting mayor to allocate some ARPA money this way, and then additionally with this additional money, and there's going to be a realignment of the intersection as a traffic calming measure to try to slow vehicular traffic down that's going directly into the Willows. Anyone's been on Fort Avenue, if you're shooting down Columbus, you're halfway down Columbus and you're still doing 40 miles an hour before you realize you're there. So this will kind of make a new re-entry into it, some raised speed tables for pedestrian safety and to slow vehicular traffic down on Fort Avenue, because it's a big superhighway to nowhere, and it just ends at the Willows at the line. So it's a kind of a way to like slow people down. It's a long time coming, and I want to thank all the neighbors that advocated for it. And I was happy to work with them and bring this to fruition. And as the councilor-elect put it out this afternoon before I had a chance to get home and do it, they have mobilized and actually are putting up temporary fencing for the construction crew that's actually going to start work on this project in the near future. And then they're mobilizing. They're in the Ford Avenue parking lot, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be hopefully a good improvement and hopefully slow people down so they can enjoy the Willows safely. So I'm excited about it, but thank you.
Any further discussion? On Councilor McLean's motion for adoption that the sum of $400,000 be transferred from the general fund balance for reserve for free cash and appropriated to the following account in the capital improvement fund below for the costs associated with the redesign of 4 Ave, Winter Island Road, Columbus Ave, and Columbus Square. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We've been ordered that the sum of $300,000 is hereby appropriated from the retained earnings water sewer fund account to the following account for the fiscal year 24 capital project for the Willow Ave Beach sewer pipe improvements.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for suspension of the rules.
Councilor McLean moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection, Councilor McLean.
I further move for adoption.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption. Under discussion.
I will defer to Councilors Cohen and Councilor Presnowski to give us the update on this one.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, President Stott and Councilor McLean. Just want to preface this by saying that Councilor Presnowski and I do regular tours every week if anyone wants to come and check out the pipe. This is an amazingly precarious health and environmental hazard, and we, at one point, Representative Moulton had applied for the amount of money that we anticipated would cover the cost to lower the pipe underground, which is somewhere between $20 and $30 million, through the infrastructure bill. There's a hazardous fund, and the reason we didn't secure that money was because the pipe had not broken. So there are people within the city and our state legislature who are trying to secure that money, but in the meantime, we really need to make sure that the pipe and the supports are not compromised. Representative Moulton was able to secure a little bit less than $1 million to help with that effort. I'm recommending that this body adopts this so that we can get started immediately on this one project, and that is that while Diane's Boatyard is not in season, we're able to do some work at the yard to create a bypass in case there's like severe weather, freezing. We've had large boats hit the pipe. Some we've actually managed to keep from hitting the pipe, but with severe weather, this pipe could be really in danger, and hundreds and hundreds of homes would be affected, their ability to use the sewer system. So, and I know Councilor Presnowski and maybe the mayor want to say something, but it's really important that we get this bypass and some of the work done, and that will enable us to address any emergencies in a manner that we're not able to do right now. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Presnowski?
Thank you, President Stott. I think for the public's benefit, they should know that that pipe, which is at the end of Willow Avenue, commonly known as Pipes Beach, that was built in 1904, and it's very old. And anybody that wants to take a walk down at low tide and take a look at the supports that are supporting it, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that looks like it's going to fail any day. I'm glad to see that the city is finally taking steps to take measures to appropriate funds for a contingency in case it fails, because if it does fail, it's a good amount of homes and businesses in South Salem are going to be impacted because their sewerage is going to stop. So at least we're taking the first step in a contingency plan to be able to do something in case it happens. And then, of course, the next step is to try to find the funding to move that pipe and do it the right way. So I'm glad to see this come before us. It's been quite a while now. Councilor Cohen and I, with the neighborhood, have been working on it for years, and I'm glad to see it go through. Thank you.
Any further discussion? On Councilor McLean's motion for adoption that the sum of $300,000 be appropriated from the retained earnings water sewer fund account to the following account for the fiscal year 24 capital project listed below. For the Willow Ave Beach Sewer Pipe Improvement, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $79,504.59 be approved within the Retirement Stabilization Fund Vacation Sick Leave Buyback account for a fire department employee and an engineering department employee.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for suspension of the rules.
Councilor McLean moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection, Councilor McLean.
Thank you. I further move for adoption.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption. Under discussion.
One last contractually obligated PTO buyback. We thank them for their service.
Special name on there. Any further discussion? On Councilor McLean's motion for adoption that the sum of $79,534.59 be appropriated within the Retirement Stabilization Fund Vacation Sick Leave Buyback to be expended to the contractual buypacks listed below. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order to accept the donation of $1,200 from Zachary Stern. The donation is to be deposited in Park and Rec donation fund for a bench.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for adoption.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you, Zachary Stern.
Any further discussion? On Councilor McLean's motion for adoption to accept the donation of $1,200 from Zachary Stern for the Park and Rec donation fund for a standard bench. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the mayor and the city council accept the provisions of Section 4, Chapter 73 of the Acts of 1986 for fiscal year 2024, and that such additional exemptions granted be 100% of the statutory exemption amounts, provided all other qualifications specified in said Section 4, Chapter 73 of the Acts of 1986 are met.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for adoption.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption. Under discussion.
No.
Any further discussion? Any clarification? We're good? Okay. On the motion for adoption that the mayor and the city council accept the provisions of Section 4, Chapter 73 of the Acts of 1986 for the fiscal year 2024, and that such additional exemptions granted be 100% of the statutory exemption amounts, provided all other qualifications specified in Section 4, Chapter 73 of the Acts of 1986 are met. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have a resolution to file and accept grants with and from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy Environmental Affairs for the park program for Phase 2 improvements to Salem Willows.
Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, President Stott. Whereas Salem Willows is a community-wide asset in the preservation of improvements to this are...
Waive the reading.
Thank you. No, that's all right. I could have sped right, but no, that's fine. We'll go right to the end. I move for confirmation. I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Councilor McCarthy moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion.
You can have that back. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't have to read that. Basically, obviously, last year a couple years ago, we applied for a park grant, a PARC grant. And because of the timing of the grant and how that aligned with the Willows Pier, they didn't quite align at the right time. So we last year, we actually gave money back, which I wasn't really in favor of because I'd never like giving money back to the state. But in their infinite wisdom, they ensured us that if we reapplied, they'd get it back to us, and they did. And I'm very happy to say that the bid for the Willows Pier, in conjunction with the fishing games, is going out on December 14th, due back January 12th or 13th, I think. And then everything will align, and hopefully the pier project will go forward. This project, which is the upland part, which will then create a fishing pier that will be totally ADA compliant. This will raise the elevation. The pier is going to be raised in elevation by approximately 4 feet. It's going to go out, form a T, traditional fishing pier. But on the upland side, which the park grant will address, they're going to bury some of the utility lines. They're going to raise the elevation so that it's a smooth transition. There's no going down a hill and then going back up. It's going to be straight in. It's going to be a vast improvement to that end of the park, and be a welcomed addition back to have the fishing pier back, because it's a resource that's been missed by a whole bunch of people. And then eventually, I will say that the fishing game, the agency has also agreed that after the pier is done, that once hopefully this body at some point will then allocate some additional funds, they've allowed for a gangway and a float to be installed as it was previously, so that if someone wants to skip in on their boat and go in and grab a chop suey sandwich or grab some popcorn or an ice cream or something, they can. And so I think it's going to be a great asset, and I would wholeheartedly ask for everyone's vote on this by roll call vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Exciting stuff. On the resolution to file and accept grants with and from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the Park Program for Phase 2 improvements to Salem Willows. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Watson-Felt?
Yes.
Council Varela?
Yes.
Council Prosnewski?
Yes.
Council Marcillo?
Yes.
Council Merkel?
Yes.
Council McLean?
Yes.
Council McCarthy?
Yes.
Council Hapworth?
Yes.
Council Cohen?
Yes.
And Council Stott?
Yes. On the resolution for PARC program for Phase 2 improvements to Salem Willows, 10 members voting in the affirmative, 1 absent, matter carries. Mayor's informational page.
We have a letter submitted from the mayor with his recommendation of setting the current fiscal year tax rate.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. Received and filed. I move that this be received and filed.
Councilor McLean moves that this be received and filed. Any discussion?
Really no discussion that would even approach the amount of discussion that's already been had about this tonight.
Any further discussion on the motion that the letter from the mayor with his recommendation of the setting of the current fiscal year tax rate be received and filed? All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. Let's see. City of Salem, December 7th, 2023. Determination, the percentage of total taxes to be borne by the 4 classes of property. Ordered that the City of Salem adopt a residential factor of 85.8484% for fiscal year 2024. And I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion?
No further discussion.
Any further discussion? We won't have.
Is that the way you don't need it as a 0.84 percentage, or is that okay? Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Just confirming the numbers in the agenda. Any further discussion? On the motion for adoption by roll call vote that the determination of the percentage of total taxes to be borne by the four classes of property, ordered that the City of Salem adopt a residential factor of 85.8484% for fiscal year 2024. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Counsel Watson-Felt?
Yes.
Counsel Varela?
Yes.
Counsel Prosnewski?
Yes.
Counsel Marcillo?
Yes.
Counsel Merkel?
Yes.
Counsel McLean?
Yes.
Counsel McCarthy?
Yes.
Counsel Hapworth?
Yes.
Counsel Cohen? And Counsel Stott?
Yes. On the motion to adopt a residential factor of 85.8484% for fiscal year 2024, 10 members voting in the affirmative, 1 absent, matter carries. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for immediate reconsideration in the hopes that it does not prevail.
Councillor McLean moves for immediate reconsideration in hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor? All opposed? Opposed. Matter does not prevail. Further motions, orders, and resolutions.
City of Salem, December 17th, 2023, ordered that the City of Salem not adopt an open space exemption for fiscal year 2024. And I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Councillor McLean moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion.
So we are not taking the open space exemption, and so we are voting to not do that. Is everybody on the same page here?
Positive vote provides a negative outcome. Okay. Any further discussion or clarification needed on that? No. Okay. On the motion for adoption by roll call vote that the City of Salem do not adopt an open space exemption for fiscal year 2024, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Counsel Watson-Felt?
Yes.
Counsel Varela?
Yes.
Counsel Prosnewski?
Yes.
Counsel Marcillo?
Yes.
Counsel Merkel?
Yes.
Counsel McLean?
Yes.
Counsel McCarthy?
Yes.
Counsel Hapworth?
Yes.
Counsel Cohen? Yes. And Counsel Stott?
Yes. On the motion that Salem do not adopt an open space exemption for fiscal year 2024, 10 members voting in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, the matter carries. Kind of. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for immediate reconsideration in hopes it does not prevail.
Mr. McLean moves for immediate reconsideration in hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Opposed.
Further motions, orders, and resolutions.
City of Salem, December 7th, 2023, ordered that the City of Salem not adopt a residential exemption for fiscal year 2024, and I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, this is a similar vote. Positive is a negative. On the motion that the City of Salem does not adopt a residential exception for fiscal year 2024, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Counsel Watson-Felt?
Yes.
Counsel Varela?
Yes.
Counsel Prosnewski?
Yes.
Counsel Marcillo?
Yes.
Counsel Merkel?
Yes.
Counsel McLean?
Yes.
Counsel McCarthy?
Yes.
Counsel Hapworth?
Yes.
Counsel Cohen?
Yes.
And Counsel Stott?
Yes. On the question that Salem does not adopt a residential exception for fiscal year 2024, 10 members voting in the affirmative, 1 absent, matter carries. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. City of Salem, December 7th, 2023, ordered that the...
You want to do the immediate...
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I will move for immediate reconsideration of the prior vote in hopes it does not prevail.
Councillor McLean moves for immediate reconsideration in hopes that it does not prevail. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Opposed.
Councillor McLean.
City of Salem, December 7th, 2023, ordered that the City of Salem not adopt a small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2024, and I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Councillor McLean moves for adoption by roll call vote. Any discussion? Seeing none, on the motion that the City of Salem not adopt a small commercial exception for fiscal year 2024, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Counsel Watson-Felt?
Yes.
Counsel Varela?
Yes.
Counsel Prosnewski?
Yes.
Counsel Marcillo?
Yes.
Counsel Merkel?
Yes.
Counsel McLean?
Yes.
Counsel McCarthy?
Yes.
Counsel Hapworth?
Yes.
Counsel Cohen?
Yes.
And Counsel Stott?
Yes. Thank you. On the question that Salem does not accept a residential exception for fiscal year 2020, sorry, this is commercial. Yeah, I'm just gonna. On the question that Salem does not adopt a small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2024, 10 members voting in the affirmative, 1 absent, matter carries. Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Council President. I move for immediate reconsideration in hopes it does not prevail.
Councillor McLean moves for immediate reconsideration and hopes it does not prevail. All those in favor? All those opposed? Opposed? Does not prevail. Further motions, orders, and resolutions. Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, President Stott. In the year 2023, an ordinance relative to traffic be it ordained by the City Council in the City of Salem as follows. Section 1, Section 49 of Article 4 be amended by inserting the following. Harbor Street, obedience to isolated stop signs, westerly bound traffic on Harbor Street at Washington Street. Section 2, the ordinance shall take effect as provided by City Charter, and I move this is adopted first passage.
Councillor Cohen moves for adoption for first passage. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Stott. So for people who know this intersection, it comes down Harbor Street to Washington Street and takes a turn to Washington Street at Lafayette Park. It's really dangerous. SWAG and other groups, businesses and residents alike feel it's not only almost impossible to navigate as a pedestrian, but really confusing for motorists. And we had discussions approved by Traffic and Parking Department and Lieutenant Tucker from the Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? On Councillor McLean's motion for adoption for first passage for an ordinance relative to traffic for an obedience to an isolated stop sign at Harbor and Washington Street. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further motions, orders, and resolutions. Councillor Watson-Felt, can you? No, I'm sorry, Councillor Merkel. That's why I already talked. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Merkel.
Thank you, President Stott. Yes, in the year 2023, an ordinance relative to traffic be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Salem as follows. Section 1, Section 50B handicap zone, limited time by adding the following. Beaver Street in front of 36 Beaver Street, running northwest for 20 feet. This ordinance shall take effect as provided by the City Charter, and I move for adoption for first passage.
Councillor Merkel moves for adoption for first passage. Any discussion?
Thank you, President Stott. Just that this is needed, and Lieutenant Tucker's recommendation for this is in the backup documentation.
Thank you. Any further discussion? On the motion for adoption for first passage, ordinance relative to traffic for Section 50B handicap zones in front of 36 Beaver Street. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Councillor Merkel.
Thank you, President Stott. I move that we go out of order and take the Public Health, Safety, and Environment Committee report on page 22.
Councillor Merkel moves that we go 23. Committee reports on page 22, seconded by
it's 23.
Councillor McLean. Committee report, so we are going.
Sorry, that is on 23.
Yeah. Page 23. We are going to the second committee report on page 23. Councillor Varela, is that correct? Yeah, okay. Councillor Varela.
Thank you, President Stott. In City Council, December 7, 2023, Committee on Public Health and Safety Environment, to whom referred the matter of discussing the opt-in specialized code, has considered such matter and could recommend adoption.
Thank you. On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Report is accepted. On adoption of the recommendation, Councillor Varela.
Thank you, President Stott. So on November 28th, we were met with a couple of members of our city. We had the presence of our Sustainability and Resiliency Director, Neil Duffy, Michael Rossi of PSD Consulting, who consults for DOR and Mass Save, and our Code Enforcement Officer, Vulas Travanos, as well. So just to be clear, when it comes to specialize the opt-in code, this is an enhancement to the already already adopted stretch code that we have here in Salem. By adopting the specialized code, we will ensure that that we'll have grant funding available when it becomes available. Salem adopted Resilient together with the City of Beverly in 2021 as a part of a climate action plan. The major goal of the net zero emissions for 2050, also shared by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Net zero energy building code was an action to be adopted at the time. At the time, we did not know what that would be, and now we're talking about it. This is what came out. It's called specialized code. Electrifying our grid, transportation, and housing is a key goal to reduce our emissions and to help overcome concerns of climate change. 31 communities have already adopted the opt-in specialized code. And just to go over very briefly about what we discussed in our meeting, this only applies to new construction. It accelerates electrification now and facilitates it down the road. The proposed effective date would be July 1st, 2021. And is a requirement for Mass DOR's 2024. Apologies, guys. Thank you. So to kind of go over very quickly on the basics of specialized code, basically high performance standards for large homes and using fossil fuels. Homes greater than 4,000 feet conditioned square feet that use a mixed use fuel would have to opt into the code for pre-electrification. Pre-wiring required for buildings using fossil fuels, solar required for fossil fuel buildings, and high performance standard for multi-family units as well. So there's only a couple changes within the specialized code, and I know I will let Councilor Cohen talk more about those. But for us to meet our energy goals here in the state, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the opt-in specialized code is a step forward. And I do believe that this is one small step we can take. And it would just be unfortunate if we do not adopt this, that we are losing out on grant funding that would be available in the future when it comes to these measures. So with that, thank you and appreciate it.
Thank you. Under discussion, any further discussion? Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, President Stott. I do want to mention before I do my comments that Mr. Neil Duffy, Director of Sustainability and Resiliency, who made the presentation, and Michael Rott is in the room. If people have questions, Michael Rossi, who's an energy code consultant specialist, is on Zoom. Resiliency is important, but the city needs to do much more regarding sustainability, as we can't quantify the impact of the climate crisis and how much adaptation resiliency will actually need. Yet we can reduce carbon. The International Panel for Climate Change, which is the UN panel that studies climate change, recently issued a drastic comment that just the amount of extraction of fossil fuels that are already in the pipeline will result in a temperature rise of 3 degrees from the industrial age. So for people who don't know, the basic premise is that a 1.5 increase from the industrial age will almost create a tipping point that we can't reverse. On November 17th of this year, the Earth actually reached 2 years above that amount, which is a catastrophic omen. On January 12th, I submitted the original order, the council to start reviewing the opt-in code. Later that month, Councilor Varela and I met with then acting Mayor McCarthy and the director of the building commissioner, St. Pierre. Subsequently, after Mr. Duffy was hired, he and I have met several times regarding the green building ordinance. This body passed a green building ordinance, which was initiated by the Sustainability, Energy, and Resiliency Committee for municipal properties. I had worked with the help of Councilor Stott with the Planning Department for over a year to develop a green building ordinance for non-municipal properties. However, Mr. Duffy noted in our conversations that several components of the ordinance were in conflict with the stretch code, which we opted into in 2010, and our focus then became the enforcement of the stretch code and the adoption of the specialized code. Councilor Varela, Mr. Duffy, Mayor Pangallo, and staff, including our city solicitor and acting building commissioner at the time, met regarding the code. And really one of the key issues we came up with is that the stretch code, in the order that was passed to adopt it originally, every few years when the state when the code changes, we have to adhere to that. And there's a lot of confusion because unlike the specialized code, which is only for new construction, not retrofits or whatever, the stretch code applies to virtually everything. And this July 1st, the stretch code is got a significant change. So this kind of coincides with that. And the belief was that many building inspectors, wiring inspectors, whatever, and even people in the trades don't necessarily understand the complexities of the stretch code. Mr. Duffy organized trainings for our inspectors and developers in the area, as well as other inspectors throughout the North Shore, and has committed to doing the same between now and implementation regarding not only the enhancement to the stretch code, but the opt-in specialized code. One of the things that Mr. Duffy brought up in the presentation to the committee was that all the current developments in the queue actually conform to the code. It's really important for people to understand that those developments, whether it's 275 Lafayette or Canal Street Station, Bertini's, would not be doing this because they're not mandated unless it was financially viable for them. And if a development is built and it's all electric, it's not really under the purview of this code. What's really most important is adopting the specialized code is a requirement for a new designation as a climate leader community with the Department of Energy Resources. That will enable Salem to qualify for resiliency and sustainability grants. As we adopted into the stretch code, we have already realized over $1 million of grant funding for these kind of projects. And as we develop more resiliency projects, like Palmer Cove Park, the Willows, the Point, where Mr. Duffy has made presentations about things that we have to do. I know we have an upcoming, hopefully we'll pass a really great resiliency ordinance, and this will better enable us to fund these projects, which are going to be very expensive. And thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Councilor Presnowski.
Thank you, President Stott. If I'm not mistaken, this was the committee meeting where the council of the whole was not invited, but those councilors that wanted to attend, I being one of them, didn't have the opportunity to get educated exactly the nuances of this and the impacts of it. We were then advised by our city solicitor, our council, that we shouldn't attend this because it would violate some of the ethics and quorum code. So there was a committee meeting held that I didn't attend under the advice of council that I still have questions of, and I don't want to start asking those questions here because I don't believe that this is the place to ask them. So, and I think maybe some other councilors, I can't speak for them, but I myself may have some questions about exactly how this works. I trust both councilors, Varela and Cohen, with their professionalism and their background in this, but I just would like the opportunity myself to have this explained fully and ask my own questions. So I'm asking that this be remanded into committee and have the council as a whole invited and have that presentation available for all of us. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I'll ask a question. Is that, if I may?
Councilor McCarthy?
Was that in the form of a motion?
Correct. Yes, it was.
Second.
So Councillor Presnowski moves that this be remain in committee, seconded by Councillor McCarthy. Any further discussion? Councillor Cohen, did you want to go? Second time?
Yes, thank you, President Starr. I'm going to vote against this for two reasons. One, the same presentation that Mr. Duffy did to our committee, I did to the acting mayor and the then building commissioner. But Councilor Varela, when we understood that this wasn't co-posted, we made available the presentation. We also recommended that people reach out to either myself or especially Mr. Duffy. He's in the room. I think this is such a small lift, so few things that are involved in this code. I think if people have questions, Mr. Duffy is right here. And I would encourage people, if we could suspend the rules for Mr. Duffy to come up, if Council Presnowski or McCarthy, anyone has any questions, not to rely on anything that I've said, but rely on the expert that we have with the city. I would encourage that.
Any further discussion? Councillor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. So I will say I'm a little torn on this one because I agree that I have questions also, and I actually spent some time asking questions today. My questions were around the effect on new construction of housing, which is what we are bending over backwards in Salem to help increase the number of units that we have in for housing. And, you know, I was a little disappointed that nobody at the committee asked about that. So I definitely have questions. At the same time, I understand this. I just don't understand what the hurry is and why it can't be passed in January. So I guess that's, if I could understand what the fire is, maybe that could help me understand why we need to vote on it tonight as opposed to waiting until January so that we can better understand the presentation and ask questions that we have. Thank you.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I would add one of the questions I have to that is how does this functionally play out if we determine to keep this in committee, having already gone through the process earlier tonight of carrying over everything that was in committee? Do we then have the opportunity to tonight make sure this actually does get carried forward into January?
Yes, if I can answer that. This is separate because that wasn't an item that was carried over, so we would carry it over in this sense with this motion. That wasn't on the list because that was during that committee report or committee meeting.
Because it was already recommended. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we would still have to include that in the motion to send it to committee, co-post it with committee of the whole with the suspension of the rules, that it roll over into next year. It would be very long. Yeah. Councillor Merkel.
Thank you, President Stott. Yes, with the understanding that we do have the committees to look into each issue, I don't see that every single thing we bring in would be committee of the whole, because then we would really just have the council, you know, wearing the hat of being every committee. I think we, with the urgency, there is some urgency with this just because of the basic climate crisis. It was a good presentation, and I think we could take advantage of suspending the rules and have Mr. Duffy here for any questions that we have. Having been on the committee and being in the meeting, there was questions about, the challenges that it would be. I remember asking them, the challenges for development, and one of the points, that was made and also just made by Councillor Cohen is that where was it in my notes here? Yes, that this would be effective July 1st on 2024, which is also the same date the updated stretch codes become more stringent. So either way, changes are coming. And also Mr. Duffy spoke to some training that was happening, and I would request that maybe we could suspend the rules and have him come up and answer some questions and see if that makes the body more comfortable. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Hepworth.
Thank you, President Stott. I want to see this pass. I think this should pass. If there's urgency around it, I would be happy to vote for it tonight. I'm also of the mindset that if a counselor makes a good faith request to send something to committee for discussion, I don't think this was intended to go to committee without the committee of the whole. I think that was probably an oversight. I think if a counselor makes a good faith request to send it to committee so that we can have further discussion around that, it seems like a reasonable thing to do, and I'm happy to support that request. I don't think we should be, I mean, if we have questions right now, that's fine, but that's not what a council meeting is for. So I would prefer to see this go to committee.
Any further discussion? So Councilor Presnowski has a motion on the floor to send the matter back to committee, to the Public Health, Safety, and Environment Committee, co-post it with Committee of the Whole, and that Rule 29B be suspended so that the matter remains in committee in 2024. Did I get that correct, Madam City Clerk? So on the motion that the matter be sent to PHSC, co-post it with the rule suspended, all those in favor? All those opposed? Matter carries. Councilor Merkel?
Thank you, President Stott. I move to go back to the agenda where we were, which was page 21.
Moving back to page 21, motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilor Cohen and Varela. Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, President Stott. I think there's a little bit of confusion. So
do you have a motion, Councilor Cohen?
Oh, I'm sorry.
An order and a motion?
Ordered that the City Council adopt the specialized code for the purpose of regulating the design and construction of buildings for the effective use of energy and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions pursuant to the entirety of 225 CMR 22 and 23, including appendices RC and CC, including the future additions, amendments, modifications thereto, with an effective date of July 1st, 2024, and that the building inspector and sustainability and resiliency director be requested to work with the city solicitor to ensure the adoption of the code meets the state requirements and work with all relevant departments to ensure that all residents, organizations, and relevant entries are aware of the specialized code as soon as possible. I move for adoption by roll call vote.
Councilor Cohen moves for adoption by roll call vote. Under discussion?
Thank you, President Stott. So I think I'm just going to suggest that maybe there's a little confusion. We move that the committee report was redone. I'm going to actually move, because it seems like the council wants to have another meeting about it, that this order is that this is the order that goes into the Public Health, Safety, and Environment Committee for review. Because in the original order, it didn't actually have the order attached and it wasn't co-posted. So I will move that this is moved to the Public Health, Safety, and Environment Committee, co-posted with the whole sometime in the near future.
So the motion is to send this, both can go in there, so send this to the Public Health, Safety, Environment Committee, co-post it with the Committee of the Whole, and that Rule 29B be suspended so the matter carries over into 2024. Is that correct? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. And now we're going back to committee reports. Councilor Marcillo.
Okay, hold on.
Do you have the extra?
Okay. City of Salem and City Council, December 7th, 2023. The Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, to whom was referred the matter of establishing an outdoor dining policy, as considered said matter and would recommend adoption as amended. Thank you.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Report is accepted. On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President. I'm finding my final copy here. Can you give this to? Okay. All right, so in the committee, we discussed some amendments that kind of tighten up the language from the first meeting that we had, and the areas are around public safety and space calculation, among other things. So we went through each of the amendments as in this document, and we did include one that I just want to read to the rest of the council. There was a question to add a penalty if furnishings for outdoor dining are not removed in a timely manner. And so the line added by Ms. Renard was, the city may impose a penalty equal to the pro rata share of the seasonal fee for the failure to remove furnishings. So I think that covers any sort of a penalty that would be imposed if people don't clean up after themselves. This, like I said, we had a really thorough discussion on this, went through every single line of this policy. This goes hand in hand with the ordinance, which we had first passage on at the last meeting, and we're having second passage tonight. And so this allows for charging restaurant owners $100 per parking space, and with these amendments, there is a definition for a parking space that's 20 feet by 8 feet, so you can't claim that a bus space is a parking space. And it goes through descriptions of which 2 spaces in front are yours, and if you use part of another one, you're charged for another one. The rate for using a sidewalk is $1.50 per square foot. So I think this is a pretty good policy. It would not surprise me if we have to come back next year and tweak things a little bit. But I think that this is a really good way to handle the outdoor dining.
Any further discussion? Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you. I just want to thank the chair for all her work on this and the follow through on it, because last year when we as a community weren't sure that the COVID protocols were going to be extended, we had a meeting with all the business owners, and it was very well attended. Then they were obviously raising concerns. Getting this done now is very advantageous, because now these business owners, once they get into the first of the year, they know what's expected of them. They are going to know how they have to adhere, and they know what the incurred costs are going to be. And it's not for me to dictate to them what their business model is. But now they can make that choice if they want to continue with outdoor dining or not, because now it's going to come with an incurred cost, and they're going to know what the rules are, and everyone's going to be playing by the same rules. So I think it's very important, and I want to thank the chair personally for all her due diligence and her committee's work on it, and for getting this in front of us. And I wholeheartedly support it, and I wholeheartedly support the second passage for the outdoor dining ordinance, because I think the outdoor dining has been said a bunch of times, is there weren't a lot of good things that came out of COVID, but one thing for our community that came out of COVID was outdoor dining, and the way that our community has embraced it, and the way it's enhanced the dining experience for people from all over the world to come to Salem. And I think this is just another way to keep enhancing it, and it's going to make a positive influence. So I want to once again thank the chair and her committee for all the good work on this.
Any further discussion? Okay. So the motion is adoption as amended, correct? We don't need to do, okay. On the motion to adopt the City of Salem outdoor dining policy as amended, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further committee reports. Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. City of Salem and City Council, December 7th, 2023. The Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, to whom was referred the matter of carrying matters forward to the year 2024, has considered said matter and would recommend that Rule 29B be suspended to carry over the following 2 items. Number 462, which is the ordinance to amend Green Lawn Cemetery, and number 437, no turn on red.
Turn on red.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Report is accepted. On adoption of the recommendation under discussion.
Thank you, President. We discharged a couple and we kept these two to continue discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, on the motion that the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs carries over number 462 related to Green Lawn Cemetery and 437 no turn on red, and in Rule 29B be suspended, so these matters are carried over into the year 2024. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Oh, it's me. Further committee reports. One more time. Bob, do you mind? Mr. President.
Oh, she's not, you're not even going to sit in my chair. Too many pickles. Yeah, the pickles are scary.
I start crying and eat pickles.
Council Stott.
Thank you. City of Salem and City Council, December 7, 2023. The Committee of the Whole, to whom was referred the matter of carrying matters forward to the year 2024, has considered said matter and would recommend that Rule 29B be suspended to carry matters forward into the new year, including number 271, an ARPA funds discussion. Matter number 2022, discussion on the history of the SESD pilot program. And number 559, that the flag of the Massachusetts tribe at Ponkapog be displayed in the chambers near the Namkeg portrait.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor, all those opposed. On adoption of the recommendation and discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're carrying over 3 matters of the Committee of the Whole. ARPA funds, we still have ARPA funds, I believe, for another year and a half or so, and we have continual discussions on those, so I think it's wise to keep that in Committee of the Whole in case we need to meet. I think especially coming forward into the new year when a lot of the projects that we have allocated with ARPA funding, the timelines are coming up quick on those, so it's good to have this matter in committee. The SCSD pilot program history, be great to hear about that. I have many questions. And then the most recent one, which was just put in at the last meeting for the Massachusetts tribe to be displayed in chambers, just did not have a chance to schedule that yet this year.
Thank you. Seeing none. On the matter that has been recommended for adoption, all those in favor, all those opposed, matters are carried over.
Further committee reports. Councilor Presnewski.
Thank you, President Stott. City Council Committee on Government Services met tonight, December 7th at approximately 6:40 for the purpose of discussing matters to be held over. And the committee is holding over one item, number 231, ranked choice voting, and ask that we adopt this recommendation under 29B, that the matters be suspended and carried over to the new year.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Report is accepted. On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you. We were educated a little bit last year on ranked choice voting, and at that time, at the end of the meeting, we asked that this matter be continued in discussion because it's something that's slowly evolving and taking time to digest whether or not this is something that the city wants, whether it's a benefit to us, whether it works or it doesn't work. So we ask that this be the discussion be continued and open on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor President, can you tell me the order number again?
Order number 231.
231, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion that order number 231 remain in committee and that Rule 29B be suspended so the matters be carried into the new year of 2024? All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further committee reports. Councilor Hepworth.
City of Salem and City Council, December 7th, 2023. The Committee on Community and Economic Development, to whom was referred the matter of carrying matters forward to the year 2024, has considered said matter and would recommend that Rule 29B be suspended to carry forward Numbers 77, meet with the planning department and CIU to discuss single room occupancy. Number 391, zoning overlay for food trucks. And number 560, discussion of haunted happenings 2023. And I recommend adoption.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Report is accepted. On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President Stott. Just want to thank the committee for all of their hard work and the one meeting that we had at the very beginning of the year. There are only two matters carrying forward really here. One is the zoning overlay, food truck zoning overlay, which is still under discussion with Councilor Varela, and there is the single room occupancy, which I brought forward earlier in the year that the mayor has discussed and discussed allocating more resources to study next year. So I think those are great. And then the haunted happenings, I think, is hopefully an annual meeting that we have continuing forward, but want to thank everybody for that one meeting that we had.
That's a good one. Any further discussion? Councilor Varela?
Thank you, President Stott. I just wanted to be clear with everyone with the ordinance as food trucks. That was brought in as the economic development of temporary food service vendors. So let everyone know this is not just about food trucks. This is about all-encompassing vendors in the city of Salem, which is a little more creative than just food trucks. So I just wanted to make that clear. That creates equity within our food scene here, and it's not just about food trucks. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion? On the motion that matters 77, 391, and 560 roll over with the Rule 29B be suspended so that matters may be carried into the new year of 2024. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further committee reports, Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Stott. City Council, December 7th, 2023, the Committee on Public Health, Safety, and Environment, to whom was referred the matter of carrying over matters forward to year 2024, has considered said matter and would recommend that Rule 29B be suspended to carry these matters forward into the new year of 2024. Number 461, noise pollution. Number 21, creating a composting ordinance. Number 366, Mayor's Office and Engineering to hire a consultant to audit our solid waste contract. And number 505, the sale and distribution of balloons. And would recommend adoption.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? On adoption of the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President Stott. I will be brief. Specifically, obviously, noise pollution, that's a conversation we want to continue with Councilor Watson-Felt when it comes to how do we be creative of enforcing noise in our city created by vehicles and car stereos. Number 21, composting ordinance. This is a big one, which also kind of goes into number 366 as far as hiring a consultant for our solid waste contract. The reason I brought this in, and I really think we need to have a robust discussion about this next year, our solid waste contract is coming up. And as we all know, when it comes to our trash and recycling bid, it is not required to go through the RFP process. I'm glad to hear that on our engineering department, we did hire a business manager who is also starting to look into the solid waste contract. However, I really think we need to be creative going forward, not only to save money for our residents. When it comes to our solid waste contract, we do need to be creative with how we go forward with it, and not necessarily going with one company is the way to go. We also need to look into the way we recycle with dual stream recycling. There's creative ways that the city can make revenue while also getting rid of our waste as well. And briefly, the sale of distribution of balloons. This is an environmental issue, and we need to treat it as such. So again, thank you for your time.
Any further discussion? On the motion that the matter is number 461, noise pollution, number 21, creating a composting order, number 366, the solid waste contract audit, and number 505, sale, use, and distribution of balloons, remain in the Public Health, Safety, and Environment Committee, and that Rule 29B be suspended so the matters may be carried over into the new year of 2024. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Communications from city officials.
We have a report of the planning board to the city council relative to inclusionary housing ordinance.
Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. I move that this be received and filed.
Councilor Marcillo moves that this be received and filed. Under discussion?
Thank you. I'll just take 1 minute to queue up the next one and point out that the Planning Board's recommendation includes the following. For purposes of determining the half-mile distance from a commuter rail station, the recommendation of the Planning Board is the measurement that yields the most expansive inclusionary envelope.
Any further discussion? Councilor Cohen?
Yeah, thank you, President Stott. The Planning Board unanimously also said that they wouldn't change any other parts of the ordinance. They thought that the way it was presented to them was really great as is.
Any further discussion? On the motion that this be received and filed, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from city officials? Councilor Marcillo?
It leads us into what you're going to do with the inclusionary zoning ordinance.
Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. So on the inclusionary housing zoning ordinance, I move for adoption for first passage by roll call vote.
Councilor Marcillo moves for adoption for first passage by roll call vote. Under discussion?
Thank you, President. So out of the joint public hearing, there were 2 questions, and the planning department did a lot of work on trying to answer those and come up with language that was approved by the city solicitor to be amended in this ordinance. And the 2 areas were, as the planning board pointed out, how you measure that half-mile distance from the train station. And then the second one was from the Ward 2 councilor on kind of clarifying the use of historic restoration versus adaptive reuse. And so we all got today kind of their recommendations. And so I would like to take those one at a time to vote on amending the zoning ordinance. And we can start with the recommendation for how to measure the distance from the train station. And so in our packet, there were 4 options. The first 2 were recommended. The second 2 were not. The first option was to use the furthest point in each direction along the perimeter of the commuter rail. This uses 3 points to draw a circle that's overlapping and creates the map that was shown. It is the most expansive. The second option uses 2 points of the entrances to the commuter rail, and again creates the overlapping circles. This one is most closely aligned to commuter access, and the whole point of this is to create a half-mile radius where people can walk to the train station and not rely on a car. So this second one kind of fits the bill more for the pedestrian access to and from the house to the commuter rail. Under this option, we do lose about 400 parcels from option 1, but it is more reflective of the intent of the half mile. And then the third option, which again, I will underscore that it was not recommended, was to just do a 1 radius circle from the center point of the commuter rail. And then the fourth, which also is not recommended, is the 1/2 mile network, which is kind of a walking distance all around the commuter rail. This is very challenging to administer and would involve a lot of time on the staff's part to defend sometimes the way they are calculating these things as opposed to what someone who wants to build is proposing. So my point of view, what fits the bill for what we're trying to do here is the second option. It does fit keeping in mind how pedestrians are going to be walking from their home to the commuter rail and back. And so I think that option 2 is the way that I would recommend that we adopt as an amendment.
Thank you. So just for clarification, we will be voting on some possible, you're making a motion to amend, and the first amendment will be approach, or the first amendment that you're proposing is approach 2 that's provided in the backup material, which I will just read what that additional language added to the ordinance would be. For purposes of this ordinance, the half-mile distance shall be measured by applying a half-mile radius originating from each point of entry at the commuter rail station. Any parcel that is touched by that half-mile radii shall be considered included within a half-mile distance. Distance shall be confirmed by the City of Salem's Department of Planning and Community Development, end quote. So that will be inserted in section 5.4.42A. Any discussion?
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor McCarthy. Any discussion? Okay. So all we're doing is adding. I did confirm with the city solicitor that this language is good and also that this remains within the four corners of what was advertised for this ordinance. So we're good on those ends. We're just adding a definition that came up from a question of what the half-mile distance meant. How was that measured? We're adding that language in. Are we good for a vote for the amendment? Okay, so for amending of adding that language that was just stated, for the purpose of this ordinance, the half-mile distance shall be measured by applying a half-mile radius originating from the point of entry at a commuter rail station. Also, any parcel that is touched by that half-mile radius shall be considered included within a half-mile distance. Distance shall be confirmed by the City of Salem's Department of Planning and Community Development, and this language will be added to section 5.4.42. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, President. So the second amendment is, as I said, about adaptive reuse. So the new language is for adaptive reuse projects located within the Central Business B5 District. The development is permitted to reduce the number of parking spaces to 0 parking spaces per dwelling unit, provided the project conforms with section, I can't read that, 543B2B3. Did I get all that? Yeah. Thank you. It's way too light for me to read.
Oh, yeah. That's what the iPad helps with.
I know, I should do that. So again, this was to answer the question of kind of using consistent terms in our ordinances, and adaptive reuse is used and defined, and so we're comfortable going forward with that.
Okay. Any further discussion? I will add that this was also reviewed with the city solicitor and the city clerk to make sure that this was in their four corners of what was advertised. Again, we're just adding, we're not changing, adding additional clarification. So was there a motion to amend?
The motion to amend, thank you.
Is there a second on that motion? Seconded by Councilor Watson-Felt. And the motion is to revise section 5.4.42C as follows. For adaptive reuse projects located within the Central Business B5 District, the development is permitted to reduce the number of parking spaces to 0 parking spaces per dwelling unit, provided the project conforms with section 5.4.32B3. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? Amendment carries. Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you. So now I would like to amend my motion to that it be adopted as amended for first passage by roll call vote.
Councilor Marcillo moves for adoption as amended for first passage by roll call vote. Any discussion? Councilor Marcillo.
I'll jump in and say this has been a long time coming. I think we received just about mostly positive comments on this. The comments at the meetings have been positive. This is really important moving forward for affordable housing. Our affordable housing percentage decreased, which is alarming. We are just above 10%, and that's, it's just too low. We're just skirting the 10% threshold here. So this, along with some new affordable projects coming on board, will not only bump up the numbers a little bit, but this will keep it stable. As we're building new housing, we'll keep the affordability percentage in line. And it's necessary. We know that. We know it's necessary. We saw the housing prices from our tax presentation. It's stunning to me that condos, the price of a condo, the average price is almost the average price of a single family home. We live in a very expensive area, and we need to do more to create affordable places for people to live.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Stott. I know it's been a long meeting, so I'll be brief, but I do want to say thank you to planning and to departments and everybody that put a lot of work over this over a long period of time, to ensure affordable units are included in market rate developments. And, there's a lot of good in this. They'll include it. I liked that they were creating this. It was mindful to include adjustments for smaller projects, require units to be on site. I mean, there's just a lot of good stuff in this. And I really am excited that this is in front of us to vote on tonight, and I appreciate all the work that went into it.
Any further discussion? I would just like to thank my gratitude and thanks towards Amanda Chiancola, the Deputy Planner of Planning Department. I got the title wrong, who was here with our first vote in 2020, and Elena, who has joined us and also is doing a great job leading the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. So thank you so much for your efforts for this, getting us here tonight. Any further discussion? On the motion for adoption as amended for first passage by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Watson-Felt.
Yes.
Council Varela.
Yes.
Council Presniewski.
Yes.
Council Marcillo.
Yes.
Council Merkel.
Yes.
Council McLean.
Yes.
Council McCarthy.
Yes.
Council Hapworth.
Yes.
Council Cohen.
Yes.
And Council Stott.
Yes. On the question of inclusionary housing zoning ordinance as amended for first passage, 10 members voting in the affirmative, 1 absent, matter carries. With that said, I will say that we should all check our schedules. We do need a second passage on this, so we're hoping to possibly have a special meeting before the end of the year. I'm going to comment out a few dates that I have in mind, if you don't mind jotting them down and getting back to us ASAP. The 21st, the 27th, or the 28th. We're hoping to have a special meeting, so we will communicate that again as soon as possible. And hopefully we need a, supermajority, so.
And Ola is already meeting on the 21st, so.
Oh, and Ola's already meeting on this, so we might be able to.
It's just claims.
So the 21st might be the date. Okay.
You'll have 4 people here.
We already have 4. We can do it. Okay. Petitions.
We have a petition from Comcast to install conduits at the corner of North Street and Federal Street for service at 36 Federal Street.
Hearing order January 11th, 2024. Further petitions.
We have the following license applications, 1 public guide for 2023 and a whole list for 2024.
Councilor Marcillo.
2023.
He's doing Christmas tours.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I move that these be granted.
Councilor Marcillo moves that these be granted. Under discussion. No discussion on the motion that these be granted. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries.
We have the following license application for seaworms and secondhand clothing.
Councilor Marcillo.
I move these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs.
Councilor Marcillo moves that this be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal.
And carried over according to
29B.
Thank you, 29B.
Yep. Under discussion?
No discussion.
On the motion that this be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, and that Rule 29B is suspended so the matter can be carried into the... Is it 29B?
Yeah.
29B. Okay, I know, right? I'm second guessing. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further petitions.
We have 1 claim.
Councilor Marcillo.
I move this be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs. Does this need to be carried over? It's a claim.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, and carried over according to...
Yep.
29B. Yeah.
Councilmember Salem moves that this be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, and that Rule 29B be suspended so it be carried over into the fiscal year 2024 into the calendar year 2024. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Unfinished business.
We have the second passage of an ordinance relative to sidewalk permits.
Councilor Marcillo?
Thank you, President. I move for adoption for second and final passage.
Councilor Marcillo moves for adoption for second and final passage. Under discussion.
Thank you, President. This is the ordinance that goes along with the regulations that we just passed. Outdoor dining, sorry. Yes.
Any further discussion? On the motion for adoption for second and final passage for the ordinance relative to sidewalk permits. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have the second passage of a bond order amount of $2 million for a feasibility study regarding a potential new school building at the existing Salem High School site.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, President Stott. I move for adoption for second passage.
Councilor McLean moves for adoption for second passage by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Just trying to get our new high school built. Fingers crossed.
Any further discussion? On the motion for adoption for a bond order in the amount of $2 million for a feasibility study regarding a potential new school building at the existing high school site for second passage by roll call vote. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Watson-Felt?
Yes.
Council Varela?
Yes.
Council Presnewski?
Yes.
Council Marcillo?
Yes.
Council Merkel?
Yes.
Council McLean?
Yes.
Council McCarthy?
Yes.
Council Hapworth?
Yes.
Council Cohen?
Yes.
And Council Stott?
Yes. On the question of the second passage of a $2 million bond order for a feasibility study regarding a potential new school building at the site, the existing Salem High School site, 10 members voting in the affirmative, 1 absent. Matter carries. Further unfinished business.
With the second passage of a traffic ordinance relative to resident sticker parking on
Councilor,
Wednesday.
sorry. Councilor Watson-Felt.
Thank you, President Stott. I move that this be adopted for second and final passage.
Councilor Watson-Felt moves for adoption for second and final passage. Under discussion.
No discussion.
On the motion for adoption for second and final passage for an ordinance relative to traffic, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Well, well, well. Here we are.
Don't laugh.
Councilor McCarthy.
Well, I could move for adjournment, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Are you going to make me follow you?
No.
Everyone's going to be crying.
Listen, there's an over or under if I cry more times than the Patriots score points tonight. So I have no idea what the score of the game is, but I guarantee you, I don't know, I could. They're winning? Oh my God. Oh, well, I might have 21 is probably the amount of times I will cry, but in all seriousness, this is our last meeting of the year, and in doing so, by sitting in the dean's chair, I've been giving this wonderful gift to present to the council president. I just want to say that this body bestowed on me a great honor earlier in the year by elevating me to acting mayor, and in doing so, on the same night, our council president was elected president, and then I left her. And by doing so, I left her, and then she had to also join the finance committee. And after I came back, she asked, well, so you want to go on to finance? I said, no, thank you. So for those of you who didn't know and out at home, that on top of all of her duties as council president, she also had to assume the duties of being a member of the finance committee, which is atypical because the council president usually does not sit on any sitting committee during his or her tenure as president. I just want to say thank you. I watched from not afar from my office for the first part of the year, and I used to watch it on TV because I wouldn't come into the room because I didn't want to step on anyone's toes by coming into the room. But I will say that, as always, I was impressed. You did a great job. I think, I've always said that this room has a lot of history to it. It has a lot of nostalgia, and sometimes it needs a little mixing it up, and it needs a little we need to come into the 21st century, the 22nd century, whatever century we're in, and we need to step it up. And I think you did that, and this room moves in baby steps. Let's all be 100% honest. We all got elected to city government. City government does not work fast, but it does work. And I want to thank you for all the work and all the dedication, because most people also don't realize how difficult it can be and challenging it can be to run a meeting that is both live and in quote-unquote Zoom land. And in order to coordinate that and make sure that you're logged in and something doesn't crash and some stupid cable isn't broke, and everything that transpires to go to that, you handle it with dignity and grace. And on behalf of the body, I want to thank you for all your efforts this year. I will miss you. I won't be far. But this is just a little token of our appreciation for all your efforts of this year.
I know Stella actually has a sitter tonight, but hi, Stella, up out in Zoom land. I do have my honorary counselor usually with me. But thank you very much for your kind words. It's been amazing to be on this side and to see even more of what goes on in the background. I love that you said shaking things up, and I tried to not scare the clerk too much this year, but we survived. We survived, and I appreciate your partnership and willingness to just have the discussions of change. And I understand that things are hard, and like Councilor McCarthy said, we do things in baby steps. So looking forward to continuing those baby steps. Thank you. On that note, I also have a few boxes under here. Yes. First we have two departing councilors this evening. First, Councilor McLean. I have this from council for you. Thank you so much for your service. Your term was a short one, but your mark, or 2-year term, but your mark on us was definitely undeniable. You came with great perspective, and the ability to have discourse is that you were able to have with us is something that I definitely try to do. I'm always trying, but how would Lev handle this? How would Lev, you just have such a way with words of being able to present your perspective or a different thought and really get us thinking in a extremely respectful manner, which isn't always something that happens here in Chambers. So thank you so much for that and for bringing your perspective. And I, for one, definitely am bummed that your term is, one, and you won't be here next year. I will miss you. Miss your little chuckles and your little tchotchkes on your desk for sure. So I will start with that note, and this is for you. Councilor McCarthy.
I, too, want to thank Councilor McLean for his service to the council. I had the privilege of sitting next to him last year, and he showed up for his first meeting, and I'm like, this guy's bringing a pillow.
Smart.
I'm like, he must be smart, because these chairs aren't comfortable. And then he started unloading his stuff that's on his desk right now, and I'm like, wow, look at that water thing. And everyone, was like, but I too recognized early on that your thoughtful approach. And most people don't realize what kind of a sense of humor you have, because we'd sit next to each other and I'd just start throwing one-liners at you and you were trying not to crack up. But it was too short of a time to serve with you, but I want to thank you for your service. They say that most ward councilors, their average term is somewhere between 4 to 6 years. Your term was a little short, but I also have the utmost respect for you because of the conversation and the understanding that, you had to make a decision to keep doing this or to not do something else. And there was a push and pull between family, work, this, and something had to give. And I've always said it, I learned it from Councilor O'Keefe, family first. Our lives beyond these walls are more important than what goes on in these walls. What we do in here is very important. But to make that decision, it's a tough one. And I too made the same one. But I just want to thank you for your service and thank you for your time and thank you for your friendship.
Thank you. Councilor Cohen?
Thank you, President Stott. So I'm going to say this twice, I think, but I judge myself by my friends, and we were friends before we were councilors. Your family and mine. You're about the only person I know who's changed my mind in the middle of one of your sentences. And, I've said this before, some people don't appreciate it, but I didn't run to represent everyone equally. I have always been about working to help those who need it most. And the most important thing that I've done that I can remember is working on the wage theft ordinance, which started 5 years ago. And I knew I couldn't do it by myself, and it was really important to team up with the right person, and you were more than that. It's not, people in the council don't know, we met with hundreds of people, interest groups and individuals, the Department of Labor and the Attorney General's office and the DA's office and city staff. And it was, more than anything, our shared determination to do the right thing and to come up with the strongest statute in Massachusetts. You also joined me, as a couple other councilors have, at Youth Build, and it was one of the most emotional meetings classes that we had. And I think not only do I feel that I can always count on you as a friend, but I think that the students at Youth Build do too, just from one time. So I just want to thank you, my friend.
Councilor Marcillo, then Councilor Hepworth.
Thank you. I'll jump in here and say that it was too short. I hope you consider running again when things calm down. I think you bring a really interesting perspective. Like, the questions you ask are spot on and presented very well, as Councilor McCarthy said. And that was from day one. I was just blown away by the insight that you had. And anyone who would agree to chair the A&F committee is like a god to me. So, and I didn't realize it was good. I also will say that people who do this job, along with your day job, along with having young children at home, missing concerts, missing school events, missing any number of things, it's hard. I just can't say enough for my admiration for anyone with young children who steps up to do this job. It's a lot. It's a lot. So thank you. Thank you for the 2 years. You've been a good partner across Highland Avenue, and I hope we'll see you soon, though.
I think I'll echo a lot of those comments. I think when I think about this council that we've had the last 2 years, I think I'll probably, in my mind, I'll think of Lev McLean. I think as sort of somebody who embodied. I think a lot of people think that would be surprised at how often we disagreed over these last 2 years. I think that there were as many split votes over these last 2 years as there had been in the previous 2 years, but the temperature stayed down. And I think those disagreements happened in this room, and they happened respectfully. And no one more than I think Lev brought that sort of thoughtful perspective where I didn't know how he was going to land on a lot of different issues. I was probably frustrated a couple times on a couple of votes, but I respected your insight and the way you arrived at an answer. And I think that that's something that we can we can only hope that an elected leader that's representing us, especially at the local level, will behave in that fashion. So again, I had hoped that you'd run for many years, and you finally did, and we were very excited to have you in. I hope you come back someday, but just appreciate you for your service. Thank you.
Thanks.
I am going to say some things about all of you that I've been waiting to say. No, I'm just kidding. This has been such an incredible experience, and I feel like this was the perfect meeting to end on, because we hit like every single note that we hit in this room. People laughed, people got mad, it was stuffed with the public, we swore people in, we did taxes, which you could never escape. Like everything that you can do that happens in this room, we did tonight. It was really such a microcosm. I think everybody in this room knows that when people find out that you've run for office, you kind of get the same questions from everybody. Usually you get, why did you do it? And usually you get, do you like it? And my answer to that for people is always, it's work. It's work worth doing, and that's why you do it, but it's work. And that really has been true for me from the time I thought about running to the time I was in to my decision to not run again. I think when I decided to get into this, I actually am one of those things that came out of COVID. I'm one of those people who suddenly had all this access to what was going on in the process because suddenly it was online and I was at home and I could see what was going on and I could see how people were behaving and I could see what the process was. And I had that moment that everybody in this room has where you look at what's going on and you find out what's going on and you go, well, I could do that. And I could probably do that better than the last person, right? Like every one of us had that moment where it's like, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. And I wasn't happy with what I saw. I'll be frank, as I always am. I didn't like the tone of the room. It felt like people had made up their minds about what they were going to do before the conversation started. It felt like people didn't give each other a chance and they didn't always treat each other with respect. And I really didn't care for that. I think that's not what Salem is about. And that is a lot of what motivated me to get in. And I've always made an effort to not be that. I've always made an effort to give my perspective if I could in a way that was fair, that wasn't about attacking people's character. And I think I've benefited from incredible support from the people in this room because I did that. I think I have learned more over the last 2 years about myself and about this city than I have at any other time. And I think that really is because of all of you, because of the phone calls that I get, because of the support that I get, because of the opportunities and the spaces that I'm invited to. And I don't take that for granted at all. And so I have a real level of gratitude for the fraternity that we have in this room, for the ability to disagree with each other in a way where we can leave it in the room and still go out and have a drink, where we can laugh in the middle of a meeting and then get into an argument a couple minutes later and then move back into laughter. Like that's a rare thing. That doesn't happen in every meeting room. So I'm incredibly grateful to all of you for holding me in this space in that way. And I will definitely be back. It is part of the plan. But the other thing that you learn very quickly in this job is that it's really not about you. It's really about the people you serve. That's really clear all the time when you do this kind of work. And as much as I enjoyed doing this work, I knew that not only I had to make different choices for myself, but that I had to make the right choice for my constituents who really needed somebody who could be all in, right? It's really not about you. Sometimes you have to be a little bit humble about it. And I am sure that Councilor-elect Harvey loves his neighborhood, loves his home, and is going to do everything he can to serve those constituents. And sometimes it's the right thing to do to step to the side and let somebody do that work. And when the time is right, you come back and you do it again. And that's what I'll do. But I thank all of you for the support. And when I say all of you, I extend that to our city clerks. I extend that to all the folks in City Hall. Lots of phone calls and lots of emails where I had opportunities to learn and be humble. It really takes a whole large number of people behind the scenes to make something like this go. So I just can't say enough how much gratitude I have for this experience, how much I've learned, and how much I appreciate all of you.
So So well said. Thank you. And now we are here with our last full council meeting. We have one more gift. It's a big one. And I am honored to give this to the OG of council, which you will never, ever drop that, by the way. The OG of the CC, whether you're sitting across the hall or whether you're sitting on your porch listening to the waves. And we were all jealous of that in 2020, I'm just going to say. I don't even know where to begin. All of you are, I feel, much better at this than I am, but thank you so much for your service, for guiding us in 2020. I mean, that was my first term here, and that was a term. 2020, I mean, you know, we don't need to relive 2020, but you were able to lead us and guide us during 2020 when we had no clue what we were doing and totally reinvented the wheel. Talk about change and change happening fast. You went with it and you guided us all through that change, and we were able to continue to lead the city and conduct the business as needed. You guided us this year when we needed help. We needed someone to step up and go across the hall, and you were the man that did that, and you did an amazing job. And I know I am personally so grateful for doing that. So thank you so much. Thank you for your service. You are going to be missed, but you will definitely still be getting the calls and the questions. Even tonight, I mean, tonight before the meeting, I came up to you with a question about how to do something. And as I was asking it, I was like, oh my God, Bob's not going to be here next year. Your knowledge is invaluable, and it has helped guide us for 4 years. I know I would not know a quarter of what I know without your sharing of knowledge, with your willingness to take us all under your wing and help and really lead us. And your tenure here on the council has been long, and I'm sure your stories are just amazing, and I'm looking forward to that party that you're going to host and tell us all about the stories that we were promised in 2020. I'm just going to throw that out there. But I'm going to kick it off because I know everyone else is much better with words, and present you with your gift.
My wife's sitting there. I shake off. You want me to open it?
Are we supposed to open?
I'm going to get a really nice wrap.
You're good at this. I'm happy. Like a
What does it say on it? It says your name. Yeah, I can see your name. Oh, isn't that nice? That's beautiful.
Mine says Robert K. McCarthy, Council Award 1, 2008 to 2023, Council President 2010, 2015, 2020, Dean Emeritus. 2020 through 2023, Acting Mayor, January 4th, 2023, May 27th, 2023. Oh, geez, what's on the other side? Serve with the following councils. Holy crap. Oh, wow. Actually, I actually did this the other day. I ran this list in my head. I didn't do it alphabetically, though. Yeah, I want to say it's like 30. Yeah, I was going to say 30, 31. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. No, I'm not going to cry into the microphone. Not yet.
Not yet. Councillor McLean.
You know, this is one of the reasons it was too short. I only got a little bit of time with you, but I'm glad that if I was going to have just a little bit of time, I got to have that first round sitting right next to you. You definitely tried to crack me up a whole bunch of times. But I learned a lot from sitting next to you too. Oftentimes, if I wasn't sure what the next move was supposed to be in the meeting, I knew that I could just watch and listen and that you were going to know what all the moves were. And one of the things I noticed about you right away is you were doing that thing I was hoping to do. You had everybody's respect in the room, and you always gave respect to everybody in the room. And that is something that was always true about you in this room. Everybody knew they could come to you. They knew they were going to get the best of you. And everybody knew that you cared about this city. And I just respect that tremendously about you. And I'm so glad I had the opportunity to serve with you.
Councillor Cohen, Hapworth Merkel.
Yeah, again, I judge myself by my friends, and I'm going to miss you here. You know, we talked about it the other day, we'll still be hanging out. Not just because you were the cutest Barbie at the haunted happenings.
Construction kit.
The whole ride. So, you know, because I can't walk and neither can Bob. Bob drove the Barbie and Ken mobile, and the whole ride, people, all these little kids were yelling to Bob, "Hi, Barbie." And Bob kept yelling at me, "I wish you weren't in the car." And I really didn't want to do this. I can't believe Councillor Stott made me do this. And I, you know, I think Conrad knows, but I drive my 1/5 of the ward every single day. And one day I was on Wisteria, and Bob was outside, you know, next to his truck, and I just, you know, as usual, I stopped by, and I think we talked for like 2 hours while Bob's brother like built an addition to someone's house, and I'm not sure, and I mean, I go to TA, but I will say that Bob, you're probably the best gabber I've ever met. And there's a couple of things. I think people don't give you enough credit for the humanity that you bring to life and how smart you are about so many things. I think people see you as someone who's accessible and really wants to do right, but you're incredibly smart about a lot of stuff. Not as much about the environment, but everything else pretty much. But we talked about it the other day when Bob called me about the specialized code, and we spent 5 minutes on that and about an hour and a half on everything else, including talking actually about Bob and Lev and myself, and how it's so great not just to be friends and have the right relationship at the council, but to be able to be friends outside of it. And I really value the friendship that we've had since I met you. When I was the recycling coordinator, I couldn't believe the people that were calling me with constituent issues. Mike Sosnowski and Todd Siegel, mostly people who, you know, voted for them. But Bob called me, the only person who called me more than Bob was Joe O'Keefe, who actually made me take him on road trips with him because he couldn't believe they didn't pick up Surrey Street at 9 a.m. in the morning. But that's kind of how I got to know you, Bob, and I'm really grateful for our friendship, and I'm really glad how you have navigated so many things through the city and how many people look to you when they're trying to do the right thing.
I forget what I said. Did I say Councillor Hapworth and then Merkel?
Who would have guessed a decade ago that one day Bob McCarthy would be Ken driving the Barbie mobile next to Jeff Cohen as Alan? It's a weird world we live in. I just want to appreciate you, Bob. I think that for those of us who came in 4 years ago, the four of us who came in at that time, it was a time of uncertainty, and I think that's why you got that nickname of, I guess, Dad that some have called you. I think, we had to look to you for guidance and to understand what we needed to do and what was happening. And I think that even as this past year, when it was just Bob left on the council, and then the rest of us who were all relatively new, it almost was that feeling of when you're a new parent and you bring your baby, when the doctors let you take your baby and bring your baby home, that feeling of like, I now have this responsibility. I can't believe people are allowing me this. Losing Bob off the council, and then it was just us. It was sort of this moment of like, it's just us here. Bob's not here anymore. And so just appreciate you for that guidance. I think the first meeting I had with Bob was at the Ugly Mug 4 years ago, and he said some things that stuck with me, which was stay in your lane, which I appreciate. Learn to count. Put your family first. I'm sure there was more in there, but I think those like maxims stick with you because doing this job's not easy, and I think having these little things in the back of your head to remember, like, Bob told me to stay in my lane here. So just appreciate you, Bob, and happy retirement.
Councilor Merkel?
Thank you. It has been an amazing 2 years and an experience of a lifetime for me. It really has. I never dreamed I'd be doing something like this, and I am so grateful my time on the council has overlapped with Lev and Bob. Really, it's been a joy. It's been an incredible learning experience for me. Your wisdom, what you bring to every meeting, every conversation, your perspectives, your leadership, and your knowledge. I really value the time I've had in here with both of you and with all of you, and thank you. Thank you. And to the staff, just my endless questions and all the assistance I've received and the support and the encouragement. Thank you all. Really so grateful for all of you.
Councilor Presnowski?
Thank you, President Stott. Bob, our paths have crossed for many years, even before this. And when I got on the council, I remember them calling him the old guy, and I was scratching my head saying, do people really think that he's older than I am? But his experience and his knowledge on the council, because we all know that coming in here, it's so new to us, and I still consider all of us green. And there's our mentor sitting there in the corner, who's given us all guidance. And every time that some kind of question has come up, not just on procedure, but on any matter, my mind always says, geez, what's Bob got to think about this? What's he got to say about this? I took every word that he said seriously, no matter whether it was light or whether it was dark or however he put it. There's no doubt about it. He was the dean. He's the man. And see him elevated to council president was a fine not council president but mayor, was a fine thing to see, because he is a leader and people like him because he's approachable, he's knowledgeable, and he's a gentleman. So I know that our friendship is going to continue for a long time. I'm still going to be calling you, because then I'm sure we all are, because we know that you're not going to be able to just let go of it cold turkey either. So my hat's off to you for that. And Lev, thank you for 2 years of excellent council work. The one thing I realized right out of the box was, this guy does his homework. He really, before he makes a decision, he studies things very, very meticulously. And his thought process and his explanations are spot on. So I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss that. Thank you very much. Thanks to both of you, and please, both of you, please stay with us. Thank you.
Councilor Marcillo?
Thank you. I want to do a couple of thank yous first. First, I meant to thank the people on the OLA committee. I appreciate all the meetings that you came to and the work that we did and the focused work. And so thank you, all of you. President Stott, what a great job. You did a great job this year. You really did. It's not easy going from here up to there and keeping control of everything and coming to every meeting knowing what all the possible motions may be and how to handle them, along with all of the changes to the rules that we've had to deal with, and dealt with very well, I think. So again, I don't know how you do it with a young child at home and a full-time job that involves travel, much like this one over here. I just don't understand how you do it. But I just want you to know it is appreciated. All of your work is appreciated. Councilor McCarthy. I think I said back when you were raised to be the acting mayor that last year, I don't think anyone called me more than you did, including my husband. But it was as the president, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I could always count on you to help me figure out again what all the possible motions could be, how this could change during the meeting, and what I need to be aware of, and timing. And still, I catch myself, talking to you about something, and you tell me, but this has to happen. I'm like, oh, right. So that kind of wisdom is something that, the four of us are going to need to step up and learn all that stuff and remember all of your wisdom. And, but I will be cheating and calling you for sure, just to make sure. But, your knowledge over the years was important and meaningful. And you definitely helped me get through that year as president. And I will say, being president when you're alone in the room up there and no one else is here because they're all at home is really weird. And it was almost as weird as the first meeting where everyone came back. That was also kind of weird because there's no mute button. But yeah, it's been an interesting 4 years for sure. And I just want to thank you for everything you did to help. I appreciate it.
Well, I've been very fortunate. When I came in, if you look at the names on the back of this clock, which is, by the way, it's beautiful. I was very fortunate. I came in with, some of the names from, when you talk about the history of this room and the people in this room, Joe O'Keefe, our state senator, Joan Lovely, Matt Vino, and so many more. I don't want to. And then I was also blessed when Matt left, and then my good friend Josh came in 2 years later after Matt left. And I really appreciate the fact that he came. He had a planning board meeting tonight. He came over because he knew it was my last meeting. So it's tough. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a decision I made that that it was time. And as Councilor McLean said, I'm never saying never. Don't think that you're just going to hit me in the door when I leave and say you're not allowed back in here. It doesn't mean that someday I might not come back and I might not decide to run. But for right now, I just needed the time. But I've been blessed. I remember that first council I served with like it was yesterday, and I'll always remember you guys, because you guys, those guys taught me what it was like and what you had to do to be a counselor. And you guys elevated me to one of the highest honors that the city can offer, is to be mayor. I find it funny because sometimes people don't know what to call me now. Some people call me counselor, and then people are going, hey, it's Mayor Bob. And then it's like, it's mayor. And I'm just like, that never really mattered to me, because as Councilor McLean alluded to, it's about doing the job, and it's about serving the people. And, it's something I've never taken lightly, but at the same time I've always been one, if you can't find fun doing it, while you're doing something serious, then you need to find something else to do, because as important as the jobs that we do in this room are, that if you can't have that ability to laugh at yourself and laugh at others and realize that in good fun, and realize that, you know, we do spend more time with each other than we do sometimes with our own families. My boys were here earlier. They left because we were supposed to go out to dinner, but some reason this meeting went on way too long. So I'm sure that they went to some takeout place, and I'll come home when my wife and I go home tonight. There'll be takeout from someplace, and they'll thank me because, you know, with the councilor-elects, Cindy's still in the room. John and Kyle's still there too. I can't see Kyle. He's got to move. And Kyle's still here. I mean, there he is. You know, it was 16 years ago that I we assembled in the mayor's office, and we walked into this room and to get sworn in for the first time. And John Keenan was sitting right where the mayor's sitting in a chair. And he put my son, the man-child that was just behind us, the 6'2" guy with the beard, put him on his knee and says, "Yeah, sit right here. You get a good view. Watch your father." And I think when they swore us in, I was sitting at one of those desks over there, because they swear you in on the number of years of service you have. So I was near the end. So he was positioned in such a way. So John put him on his knee. I want to have John put him on his knee now and crush him. But I was blessed because I had a great support system at home. My kids, I mean, when you look at it, that was 16 years ago, when my son's just going to be 26 in January. So he was 10. And he grew up knowing me as a city councilor. And I'm not going to lie to you, but both my kids have different tacks with it. William now is, you know, he's finishing up his double graduate degree at Suffolk with applied political policy and something else. I don't even know what it is. He can't go just for the master's that's 30 credits. He's got to go for the one that's 50 something credits. But he's the one that he proofreads anytime I write a speech now, he proofreads it. And he's also the one that leans into my mother. He's going off script. And that's usually what happens. What's a script? It's like, it's just an outline. It's what you're supposed to say. I got to embellish. But then I look at my son, Jack, and it was funny because we did grow, you know, you grew up in such a time that, you know, you tried to do all the dad things. And Jack was always the one that used to look at it like I'd show up when Jack was playing freshman football, show up on the freshman football games on Thursdays. So I'd show up wearing a black suit. Jack never told any of the guys on the football team that I wasn't in the mafia, because they all assumed I was in the mafia, and he let them assume that. It was always like, what's your father do? He's like, oh, is he like in the mafia or something? He's always coming to the games in a suit. He's like, well, yeah. Well. Jack would just let it go. It was funny because we grew up, and that's the way we did. And I couldn't have done this without my wife. A couple of weeks I'll be living in the garage. She said it to somebody earlier. Someone said, "Well, why are you here tonight?" And she said, "Well, it's Bob's last meeting. I figured I'd go to one." And she said, and someone said, "Well, how many meetings have you been to?" She goes, "Oh, I think I've probably been to like a half a dozen in the last 16 years." I'm like, "Yep, it's about right." Because usually I come home and dinner's laying on the table with a note, "Went to bed." But I couldn't have done it without you, Kath. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to do this and support me and support the family, because at the same time as, you know, as I was doing this job, we were raising two wonderful young men. And sometimes I tried to be there as much as possible. I mean, I think I've had this conversation with any significant other of anybody that's been in this room. I always let them know that don't let anybody tell you that this job can't consume you. It can't overwhelm you. And you always have to put your family first. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize my bat team. bunch of years ago. I never knew. Do you know there's a special line if you're a city council you can call directly to the clerk? I used to go to the clerk's office. Back in the day, we got paychecks, and you had to go to the clerk's office to get your check. So on the Thursdays we didn't have meetings, I would pop myself in, plop myself down in the chair, and it was Cheryl and Eileen, and we'd just sit there and talk, and I'd get my check, get my mail, and then boom. And it was years later, all of a sudden, they're like, well, why don't you ever call the direct line? I'm like, what direct line? There's no, where in the council handbook does it tell you what the direct line is to the city clerk? It doesn't exist. But all of a sudden, so we're sitting there on a Thursday, or whatever day it was, and it was like, we have a special line? Is it like the Get Smart, the cone of silence? That didn't work. And all of a sudden, it's like the bat phone. You dial it up. So we jokingly formed the Bat team, and they affectionately call me Bat Bob. And I'm not gonna tell anyone publicly what the names that we have for each other, but they are the Bat team, and we all know it. Anybody who's a city council knows it. You can't do it without the city clerk's office. I was very fortunate when I came in. Cheryl LaPointe was the city clerk, and Eileen was the assistant, and Rochelle was in the office, and all the other people that are in the office. And Maureen was added to the mix when Cheryl left. They got shifted around a little bit, but the team was still there, and the amount of work that they do to make us all look good is second to none, because what goes into a meeting, we all know it. It's all the work behind the scenes to get us to the point where we have everything we need to conduct ourselves in a professional manner to do the people's business, and they do it, and we couldn't do it without them. So to my Bat team, I want to say thank you. Oh, the city clerks. Do I have to open this one now too? Yeah. Oh, good. I will say that Cheryl, don't shake it while it's a bomb. Cheryl was my first city clerk, and one time she paid me the biggest compliment, and I don't think she ever knew she did it when she said it. We were talking about an election, and I said, yep, someone pulled papers against me. I don't even remember which election it was. And I said, yeah, I don't understand why they're pulling papers against me. And she looked at me and she said, it's because you make it look easy. Not everyone can do this job. It's difficult. There's no guidelines or how to be a city councilor. You have to figure it out your own way, and everyone's different. And the front, oh, this way, I think. And I want to thank Cheryl and Eileen and Maureen and Rochelle and everyone in the clerk's office for everything they've done for me over the years to make me look good, because sometimes I mess up. I'm not going to lie to you. No.
Hey, Bob, you need to do 7 more minutes because I have money on 45 minutes here.
Okay. Bat Bob, you'll always be a superhero to us. Thank you. It's just a box. It's a keepsake box. What's it say? But thank you. Thank you. No, there's no bat phone. No, it's got the wrong number on it, but I will stop now, but seriously, thank you. It's funny because it's like every time I go into a room in the last couple of weeks, everyone wants to thank me. I was very fortunate this morning with the mayor. His nice remarks. I was at the Chamber of Commerce breakfast, and next thing you know, I got a standing ovation. I was like, oh my God, what are all these business leaders sitting around clapping for me? I'm just like, I'm one of 11 guys, or 11, I shouldn't say guys because that's not correct. I'm one of 11 councilors that serves us, that serves the people. And Council Hapworth brought him up. I have these little things. Joe O'Keefe, I used to call him Dad. So when you guys started calling me Dad, I thought it was the biggest compliment in the world. You guys thought you were probably making fun of me. I'm like, you guys just paid me the biggest compliment by calling me Dad, because I used to call Joe Dad. But it was just, I'll leave it at that. I mean, you guys have been great. I will always remember you guys because you were my last city council. And I remember the first one and everyone between. And I'll never say never. Hopefully come back as someday maybe. But for right now, I'm going to refocus. And my wife will be, like I said, will be throwing me into the garage at some point. And because all of a sudden I'm not going to have those meetings at night. And when you think about it, there's 4 weeks in a month and never one meets on Fridays. So that leaves you 4 days times, so there's 16 days where you can go out to a meeting. And when you have 3 neighborhood groups and then you have 2 council meetings and you have at least 2 committee meetings and then you get invited to a special event, how many days are left when you think about it? So, but I want to also recognize the mayor for staying and thank you. And my wife is making the noises, which means I've talked too much and I need to stop. And if someone, and we also have hands, just so you all know, just so you know, she has hand signals too, that if she does this, that means I've talked too much and I'm supposed to stop. So just so you know, so if she's putting fingers towards her nose, it means I got to stop. But seriously, thank you everyone and all. I want to thank the residents and voters of Ward 1 that have put me in this position for the last 16 years. To all my family and friends and supporters who backed me, held signs, stuffed envelopes, and did all those things that you have to do to get elected. And every single one of them helped me continue to do this job. It's been one of the greatest experiences of my life, and it's been I've been humbled to do it, and I can't believe it's over, but it is. And so with that, I will say I make a motion to adjourn.
Just one real quick, for personal preference, I think everybody knows that today's the first night of Hanukkah, and I think on behalf of the council, I'd like to reach out to the Salem residents, who are of Jewish faith and wish them a happy, peaceful, and safe holiday season. So, happy Hanukkah to everyone,
And we have the menorah lighting downtown tomorrow at 6, Map and Perp. Saturday night.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. I mean, we can still light tomorrow night too, but
Right.
Anyone else?
Hot apple cider.
Okay. Council McCarthy, can you please repeat that?
I make a motion to adjourn.
On Council McCarthy's final motion to adjourn, all those in favor? We are adjourned.